Well, hello there and welcome to the Nighthawk Racing First Championship. I'm Sarah Hawkins, also known as Sarah Hawkey, and I'll be your host this evening and one of your co-commentators for this Gran Turismo 7 Base Championship. Tonight is the final round, and what a season it's been. I've enjoyed every second of it, and I'm already looking forward to Season 3. But first, before we get there, it's my pleasure to announce I'm joined again by motorsport enthusiast, racer and co-commentator Kirk.
Hello, it's me, Kirk. I'm back. Thank you for the very nice introduction, Sarah. I can't believe how fast the season has gone. But for our season finale tonight here at Le Mans, I'm sure we'll see a lot of action tonight, and I'm certainly expecting to see the championship results all move around from the results tonight.
Yeah, there is a few battles across the grid from what I've seen, having a quick glance at the championship standings. But before we get into the race, I'm just going to give a quick series rundown for anybody that is new to the stream and new to the championship tonight. It will be quick, but we are back and better than ever for season 2 of the Nighthawk Racing First Championship. We had an 8-event championship spanning over 16 race sessions in 8 weeks. Lots of different car manufacturers on the grid every week, 28 drivers, and some great tracks on the calendar. We have 3 official time sessions with a reverse grid sprint race up first, followed by qualifying, and then tonight we'll be treated to an hour-long race around the famous track of LeMans. Okay, Kirk, could you give us a quick overview of the event session format and point scale, please?
It would be my pleasure, Sarah. So starting tonight at about 8:30 British Standard Time, we'll have our 15 minutes, as you said, reverse championship order sprint race. This will be a rolling start race to help space everybody out a little bit heading into towards the first few corners. And just important to know that tonight, it will be probably be a 4 lap sprint race, and that fuel will be pretty marginal. So if anybody's listening tonight, hopefully you can hear me say you probably want to save a little bit of fuel during the sprint race. After the sprint race, about 5 to 9, we'll start our 10-minute qualifying session. We do have a tire rule in place for qualifying, so where the tire, well, the compound tire that you set your fastest lap on is the tire you have to start the race on. Whether it be you take your fastest lap on the soft tire, so you'd have to start on the soft compound, or medium, start on the medium. And obviously, we've only seen it once, but we saw, I think it was a few weeks back, we saw the Dark Lord qualify on the hard tire and start on the hard tire at Watkins Glen, which was a very alternative strategy. Then after the 10-minute qualifying, we'll jump straight into our feature race. Again, as Sarah said, it is a 60-minute feature race. It will be a grid start, so anybody who may get a bad start off the start line could find themselves losing quite a few positions because we do have quite a long run into our first proper corner. We do have a mandatory tire rule for the feature race where you have to use 2 different compounds of tire, whether it be soft medium, medium soft, or soft hard. Um, Keep in mind that rule does go out the window if we see a bit of rain, which we could possibly do tonight. I'm not 100% sure. But if we have the moisture bug over 1/3 full, it will then be declared a wet race, and then you can use any compound attire that you like. Um, if we move on to the points, um, there are points up for grabs in every session tonight. As we see in the sprint race, you can earn between 20 and 2 points, 20 for first, and it slowly works its way down to 2 for 14th. In the feature race, we get 40 points up for grabs for first place, and then 4 for 14th. And then in qualifying, we have 3 positions that can give you extra bonus points. 3 for first place, 2 for second place, and 1 for third place. Um, and let's not forget the fastest lap bonus points as well. So if you can secure fastest lap in the sprint race, you get 1 bonus point. And in the feature race, if you get the fastest lap, you earn 2 extra bonus points. A little caveat to those those points for fastest lap is that I believe you have to be within the top 10 to have to get the extra bonus points. Certainly going to see, as Sarah alluded to earlier, we have got quite a few people battling over positions in the championship. So every point is certainly going to be almost crucial, for lack of a better term, tonight for drivers to pick up, Sarah.
Yes, and just showing the driver standings on screen at the moment, and just having a quick scan, you can see, obviously, we've got quite a battle for P2 between Dark Lord and McManley, and down the grid we've also got some close battles with some other drivers as well. So tonight will be crucial for quite a few drivers securing higher, finishing orders, but I'm sure all drivers will be battling it out with respect. Is what we always like to see, and most importantly, having fun. But I believe all the drivers are now getting ready for the sprint race. Although it's a shorter, obviously, sprint race of only 4 laps, I'm sure it'll be jam-packed, filled with action and one not to miss, shall we say. But after the sprint race, we've then got a hot lap by Pedro, which we can show. Obviously, a little bit longer than normal. But if we jump over, the race is just about to start. So, as soon as the drivers get going, I will hand over to Kirk, who will run you through the first couple of corners. Obviously, I would say usually it's first lap, but LeMans is quite a long lap, so Kirk would be talking for quite a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. As we get underway tonight, we have Haslip, aka Saber Venom, leading us off tonight, followed by Ripping the Terran, LB Lewis in third, Hartman in fourth, Deadline Midnight, should I say, in fifth, Deadline in sixth, Pedro in seventh, Mac Manley in eighth, Dark Claude in ninth, and Callum in P10. Interestingly enough, so battling for P5 in the championship, we have Hartman, Midnight, Pedro, and Coach, who unfortunately isn't in here tonight, so he will not be in the battle for P5 in the championship tonight. So it will be the 3 drivers hashing it out for P5 is Hartman, Midnight ISO, and Pedro. As we see Hartman running wide onto the grass, maybe got a little bit caught out there by LB Lewis, who picks up a half-second penalty running on to the Mulsanne straight, coming under pressure from Deadline going round the outside. Quite simply there, having a much better run onto the Mulsanne, which allowed him to easily go around LB Lewis. Looking down towards the pack, we also see Pedro picking up a half-second penalty, which will not do his hopes in P5 in the championship any good. Losing a position to Mac Manley again, going down the Mulsanne. Heading into the first of the chicanes, we have Midnight looking up the inside of Hartman. That inside going right to the outside line for the second part of the chicane, allowing Hartman to take the racing line and get in front of Midnight ISO. As we run down towards the second chicane, we still have Saber Venom leading us by 1.5 seconds to Ripping the Terran, followed by LB Lewis in P3, who does have to serve that half-second penalty, being pushed down a little bit bump drafting there from Deadline and LB Lewis to help close up to the front 2 drivers. And we have them going side by side into the second chicane, or maybe a little bit of contact there. As I said, expecting to see a few elbows tonight between the drivers, being the season finale or making every point count. If you want to take us away from now, Sarah.
Yeah, of course I can. Obviously, this section here is quite a long straight, so the drivers will be kind of in each other's slipstreams, or like Kirk alluded to, bump drafting, and it's always obviously good to see drivers helping each other out. But one thing, obviously, the track limits around Le Mans, it's not nice when you do get that half-second penalty, but it's so easy to do around here. So I think a lot of drivers will be kind of caught out by a few track limit penalties tonight, and but. Like I say, the sprint race, they usually use it as their practice session, so they'll get the track limit penalties out of the way for the feature and the qualifying. But just on board, still the 2 BMWs of Deadline and LB Racing still fighting it out. Obviously, this is a battle that we've seen across both lobbies, as both drivers have been in both lobbies. They've always had respect, fighting side by side, and doing it quite amazingly, no casualties as such. Saying that, Deadline getting very squirrely on the exit there. And obviously LB pulling off to the side, getting rid of that penalty and ready to fight back. Although he has lost a few positions now to Deadline. But I mean, Haslett, he's got a run and a half as well as Ripon Deterrin. They've got away cleanly, using the clean air to their advantage. But Deadline doesn't look too far behind, and we've also got Midnight as well, just behind Deadline. It's good to see, you know, all drivers within the same section, you know, very close to each other. Only on lap 1, of course, but yeah, obviously we've still got 3 laps around such a famous track in the sprint race. But Kirk, have you spotted anything?
Going very. Yeah, I saw Midnight going quite wide at the end of the Porsche curves, lucky not to pick up a half-second penalty, but losing a position at 2 Mac. Oh, as we see Ripon Deterrin spinning, maybe being a little bit too aggressive over the curbs there, Sarah. If you could get a replay of that.
I will try my bestest. It might be a bit too late to catch it, but it did send us quite far back. But oh yeah, just gets on the curb, and let's just say that the curbs spat him out, facing the wrong way, unfortunately. But obviously he'll still be getting points. But yeah, back to the main grid. Oh, a lot of drivers have taken a lot of curb there.
You've got to be ever so careful, especially for that first chicane of taking too much curb, as you quite easily done there, picking up a half-second penalty. Was that a bit of a bump there from the Dark Lord into the back of
the Dark Lord does look quite a little bit lagging at the moment, so potentially no drivers are being caught out by the lag or the glitching, as I should say. Obviously, whenever you're close to a driver that's glitching, you're not quite sure 100% of where they are, so I think a few drivers, you know, trying to get out of his way, but obviously Dark Lord wants to fight as well. But we have a 3-wide battle between Pedro, LB Racing and Hartman. And we see Callum diving to the inside line.
Yeah, a crucial move to try and keep his championship rival, the Dark Lord, behind. That gap is now under 30 points between the two after probably not the greatest showing from Callum last week out at Spa. So every point is crucial for Callum. But I also want to get your attention to our leader, Hassler, has picked up a half-second, well, Venom strike, so he picked up himself a half-second penalty, which obviously will not do his sprint race any good at the moment. But two of the 3 drivers all are battling for a P5 in the championship are separated by just under a second, Sarah. Or as Midnight ISO picks up a half-second penalty.
Yeah, like I say, obviously, I know personally Midnight hasn't had much practice around the track, so, you know, practice does make perfect, shall I say. So obviously some drivers that haven't practiced, they may accidentally go outside of the white lines, but that's expected when obviously you've had limited track time. But you know, I think drivers will use the sprint race, use the 4 laps. Almost 4 laps isn't enough around here to really get to grips with Le Mans. It's such a big track and so many kind of corners and sections to learn. So I think, you know, drivers will take on board as much as they can from the sprint race to help their qualifying. And obviously only minimal laps in qualifying. So it's going to be quite a tough qualifying session after this.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, only a 10-minute qualifying session, which would realistically only give the drivers 2 flying laps. And obviously, after the sessions, if you don't start your lap fast enough at the end of the session, you could get timed out as well on the 3rd lap. As we see, Hassler and Midnight Ice are both serving their penalties, which promotes Pedro up to P3 in the race at the moment, up onto the podium, doing his bid for P5 in the championship wonders. As we see the drivers going, was that up 3 wide into the Porsche curves, everyone being a little bit argy-bargy. Every position really counts, as we see Hassler and Callum going side by side. Callum being able to hold it round the outside to give him the inside line for the next corner to allow him to take a track position and force the drivers to slot in behind.
Although I've just spotted on board with Callum has got some rear end damage, so potentially a casualty in that move. You know, a brave move, but maybe picking up a little bit of damage might affect his next lap.
I think on a track that relies so much on high top speed, it could really affect Callum's race. I guess it's much more like a damage limitation now this race, because obviously it won't do his race any favors. Pedro, as we see again, the Dark Lord is hit Callum off. Might need to put a comment. That is obviously not what you want to see, really.
No,
is it, Sarah?
no. We'll notify the right people after the sprint race. Obviously, we've only got this lap and the next lap before the sprint race is finished. So obviously, we will let the right people know. Obviously, unfortunate. The Dark Lord has got internet issues and is a little bit glitchy from time to time. So unfortunately, obviously, probably his end, he's doing everything absolutely fine, but on our end, obviously, sometimes getting involved in a little bit of kind of, tapping a few drivers here and there, but it's very difficult dealing with glitching, so I can definitely appreciate how hard it is for both the drivers and for the Dark Lord, obviously having the issues as well. But saying that, we have got Midnight diving on to the inside line and manages Dark Lord leaving the room. Maybe potentially some internet issues, maybe disconnecting, but hopefully we'll get him back for the feature race. As it'll be good to see, finish on a high with Dark Lord. He's had such a good season so far as well. Obviously, we saw him once in season 1, but he's been, I believe, if I'm stand corrected, he's been here for every race of season 2, so it'd be good to finish with the Dark Lord on the grid.
Yeah, obviously, P2 in the championship, the Dark Lord. So obviously not the greatest end to what is the final race of the season. Not the greatest end, but I'm sure he can bounce back stronger for next season. So you see Midnight ISO picking up. Midnight ISO battling with LB Lewis and Callum down that back straight. LB Lewis again picking up another half a second penalty. I think with the Dark Lord's DNF, I think that hands Callum the title, Sarah.
Potentially, obviously, I think if we can get the Dark Lord back for the feature race, it might it might close the gap a little bit, but obviously the battle, I think Callum is pretty kind of set as season 2's champion, but the fight itself is between the Dark Lord and McManley. So potentially, if we can get the Dark Lord back for the feature race, that might make that battle heat up a little bit, as we currently see McManley in the lead. The two United boys, or I should say, it's their final race as Team United, so if they can finish the night off with a P1 and P2, I'm sure they'll be very, very happy, and obviously doing the team proud. But and just behind them we have Saber Venom, aka Haslett, and Hartman going at it.
I just want to say Pedro is doing very well at the moment. Obviously P3 in the race, doing all he can to secure P5 in the standings. We see Saber Venom running very wide again, so a lot wider than what we saw Midnight ISO run through, and picking up a 1 second penalty there for Haslett, promoting Hartman up into P4. Hartman up into P4, Pedro in P3, and Midnight ISO possibly looking at taking P5 off Saber Venom. Our little battle for P5 in the championship is certainly heating up with our 3 drivers following each other on track there.
Yeah, and I was just on board with Pedro. Pedro has got that little bit more fuel compared to Deadline and is closing on Deadline, so potentially we could see a slight little change on the podium here. But apart from that, behind we've got the 2 McLarens fighting it out between Midnight and Callum. And obviously Callum still got that rear end damage, so might slow him down just that little bit. Saying that, he sets a purple sector 1, so commentators curse and all that. It's always the opposite, but all drivers doing remarkably well, which I think is everyone's through on their last lap now. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. With only 2 minutes to go, with it being about a 4 minute lap, it almost looks certain that this will be the final lap of the race. With only 2 minutes to go. Um, so if I'm Pedro Hartman or Midnight, I'm sure I'll be giving it all I've got, because who knows how important that bonus point could be in this race, Sarah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, obviously you want to take the opportunities if they arise, for an overtake. We've got a lot of kind of high-speed sections around here, a lot of straights, as we see Pedro diving on to the inside line. Can he get the move done before the chicane? He does. Pedro pulls ahead of Deadline. Deadline just tucking behind. Both drivers making sure that they don't run too wide and picking up penalties. Although
Crucially,
Deadline does pick up a penalty.
That will not do his battle for P2 any good. But obviously, just like Deadline Deadline and Mac are both carrying less fuel than Pedro, so whereas they both have to save possibly a little bit of fuel to get towards the end of this race, Pedro can just go now flat out to the end of this race and not have to worry about fuel saving, Sarah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see kind of the finishing order here, as just behind them, I saw Midnight go a little bit wide in the distance, which looked like Haslett was going to go back at him, but it did let Callum back through to fight again with Midnight. And I've got to say, Midnight having a better sprint race. Normally, the luck doesn't go his way. Although, I just spotted the fuel on Midnight's car. Obviously, has got minimal fuel, so it's going to be a bit of lifting and coasting from Midnight to get to the finish here.
Yep, maybe a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if he can defend from Callum or not, especially heading into the Porsche curbs. Obviously, the other McLaren of Callum carrying that bit of rear end damage, which could possibly cost him. Maybe we could see a dive heading into the final double chicane on the final lap of the race. Currently with Mac Manley leading the way by over 1.5 seconds now, from Pedro, followed by Deadline, who obviously picked up that half-second penalty that really cost him P2 in this race. With Hartman P4, it'd be nice at P5. Oh, Hartman getting a little sideways there on the exit of the curves. But in the end, it looks like almost quite comfortable finish victory for McManley in the end here. Maybe saving a little bit of fuel through the final chicane, taking it slightly easy to take the win in the sprint race tonight. Finishing first, Pedro for second, Deadline doing very well to secure P3, Hartman taking fourth and the fastest lap, Midnight ISO taking fifth. Callum couldn't quite get that move, although he was right up behind Midnight, couldn't quite get that move done in the end, taking P6. Bobby Lewis taking 7th, Sabre Venom P8, and then ripping the tearing, coming out of the final chicane, getting a little bit sideways on exit, but coming over to take P9, Sarah.
Yes, and that has it for the last sprint race of the season, and our winner is McManley. And what a win. I think McManley will be very, very happy about that, obviously in that P2 championship battle. And he was driving it perfectly, minimal mistakes, and like I say, having a sprint race victory for his last race for United, I think he'll be very, very happy about that indeed.
Absolutely. I think we saw a lot of good racing in that race, Sarah. I'm certainly looking forward to see what qualifying has to throw up for us. Be interesting to see if any of that battle for a P5 could possibly gain an extra bonus point. Whether it be Pedro, Midnight, or Hartman securing P3 to get that one extra bonus point, Sarah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And talking about quali, should we go and watch the hot lap from Pedro? Obviously, it is quite a little bit longer than usual. Obviously, this track is quite long, and we'll get into the specifics of obviously how long the track actually is. But obviously, we will leave you with Pedro's hot lap around Le Mans, and then we'll get back to you. We'll talk a little bit about the drivers and some track facts, and we'll see who qualifies for our final feature race of the season. I will leave you with the hot lap. Enjoy, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Okay, now I'm going to be doing a lap at full speed around this track. As always, I'll try my best just to make sure that this lap is good enough to put all the tips and everything that I've explained previously into practice. And I hope it's a good enough reference for you all without thinking that it's going to be the fastest lap of you'll ever see around here. But yeah, without any further ado, let's go. Okay, now I'm going to be doing a lap at full speed around this track. As always, I'll try my best.
Hello, and you join us back. Obviously, we've just come off of the hot lap. From Pedro's perspective, I hope you enjoyed, and what a hot lap it was. Setting some good times. Pedro was there, and like I say, thank you again for Pedro for providing the tutorial videos and the hot lap videos across this season. It's very much appreciated, and it's been very, very helpful indeed. But before we get into a bit of qualifying, the drivers are just practicing, but we'll show you last week's sprint race podium, in which we saw the Dark Lord in P1, Swizzy in P2, and McManley in P3. And then the feature race podium, it was Swizzy, and then coming home in second was Pedro, and in third, picking up a double third place, was McManley. But we'll just give you a little bit of a kind of like a foresight into some of the weather conditions. We've just joined the track, and it is, let's just say, there's been a little bit of a storm that's rolled through northern France, and it's looking very different to what it did in the sprint race. So I'll leave you with that, and obviously we'll show you the track in just a second. But before we do, let's talk about some of the drivers that we will see on the grid tonight. And starting off, we have Ripin Deterium, and the 4GT was a difficult car around Spa last week, but nevertheless, Ripin drove amazingly as usual. But how will the 4GT fare around Le Mans? Obviously, we saw in the sprint race, it's a very difficult car to handle when it gets on the curbs. So hoping for some better luck for Ripin Deterrent in the feature race. But Ripin is in 16th place overall with 149 points, which does tie him with Haslett. So a little bit of a battle between those two going on tonight. Next up, if I can get my thing to work. There we are. We then have LB Racing. LB Racing, aka Lewis, secured himself a P6 and a P7 finish last week around Spa. Will he be back on or around the podium again tonight? Also, Nighthawk Racing just wanted to extend a congratulations to Lewis on a P3 finish in his recent FP4K event at Forest Edge in real life. Make sure to go and like and subscribe to LB Racing on YouTube to keep up with his karting action. LB Racing is in 10th place with 198 points overall. And unfortunately, there is no coach tonight, but we'll talk about him nevertheless. Coach has been an amazing driver throughout the season of Season 2. We did see him a little bit for Season 1, but Season 2, he's really showed us his skill and how fast he is in that Toyota Supra. So currently, obviously, Coach has 210 points and is in 8th place at the moment. But yeah, unfortunately, Coach not driving today, so we will miss him out on the grid, but we hope for him back in Season 3. Next up, we then have McManley, our recent sprint race winner. But going back to last week, McManley secured himself a double podium last week, finishing third in both races. McManley and the Mercedes has been a strong pairing throughout the season. What can Mac do in the last race of the season? Obviously, we've had a little bit of a teaser in the sprint race, but McManley is currently in third place overall with 292 points. Next up, we then have our very own Pedro. Pedro and the Porsche was flying around Spa last week. In the sprint race, Pedro came 4th, and in the feature race, Pedro came home in P2. It was Pedro's best scoring event of the season, and deservingly so. As always, a massive thank you to Pedro, who has provided another tutorial video, and the tutorial videos throughout the season, which have been available and which will be available on the Nighthawk Racing YouTube, and has been very helpful to all the drivers and definitely worth a watch. Pedro is currently in 5th place with 227 points. And the last driver for me to talk about before I hand you over to Kirk, who will run through the rest of the drivers, is Haslett. And Haslett, who you may see is Sabre Venom on the screen and on the grid. Had a difficult race in the rain with the BMW last week, but we'll be looking to enjoy battling with the drivers, gaining position, and most importantly, enjoying the race this week around Le Mans, even though obviously we've just seen it's a little bit wet. But I'm excited to see how Haslett does tonight. Haslett is in 15th place with 149 points, which does tie him with Ripon de Terren. And I will now hand you over to Kirk, who will run through the rest of the drivers.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Starting off with one of the drivers who are fighting for P5 in the championship. Therefore, look to have a very strong round tonight. We start off with Midnight ISO, one of the co-founders of our racing league. Coming off a slightly disappointing round last week, finishing P8 in the sprint and P7 in the feature race. Obviously, compared to Pedro, outscored quite a lot. That I gave Pedro, which currently gives Pedro a 9-point lead to Midnight. I'm sure Midnight will be trying to have a very strong round here tonight to really try and take the fight to Pedro in this little mini championship battle they have. Although currently maybe not having the best of starts to the round tonight, obviously finishing in P5 compared to Pedro's P2 in the sprint race. I'm sure it's all to play for in the feature race, but I'm sure Midnight one of Midnight's only goals for the feature race now is to beat Pedro and try and secure P5. After that, someone who I'm not sure who probably isn't racing tonight, unfortunately, Swizzy. After what can be described as an absolutely stellar round last week in Spa, he has all but secured P4 in the standings after pushing the Dark Lord all the way in the sprint race. Unfortunately, not having enough for pace to overtake him in the end, finishing P2 behind him after driving, and then after that, drove a completely dominant feature race. We saw him finish over 30 seconds clear of P2 and not putting a single foot wrong during what was a very, very changeable feature race last week out at Spa. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight, so he won't be able to end the season off on a high note. But I'm sure last week was plenty enough, good enough for him to end the season, and I'm really hope that he is hopefully back for being a full-time drive next season. After that, we have the Dark Lord. Unfortunately, as we saw, internet problems have ruled him out for tonight. So P2, he probably isn't getting P2 in the championship no more. He's probably going to have to end up settling for third place in the championship. But it was a very good round from him last week. We saw him take another victory within the sprint race, beating Swizzy in the end. Maybe not the greatest of feature races as we saw him finishing P6, making quite a few uncharacteristic mistakes during the sprint race. Obviously, or feature race, should I say? Obviously, the changeable conditions within the in the feature race was very difficult for everyone, and one of the drivers who were caught out slightly was the Dark Lord. After that, we have Callum. I guess again, it probably a slightly disappointing round considering how well he has driven this season. To end up taking P4 in both the sprint and the feature race. Um, although last week his point lead was reduced to only 29 points. With second place, the Dark Lord not competing here tonight due to internet problems. He has all but secured this title, the season 2 Night Hockey title. After that, we have Hartman. Again, another driver who is fighting in the battle, currently in the battle for that P5. P5. Currently only 17 points off Pedro. Even though Hartman is 9th in our standings, I'm sure he'll try his utmost to beat Pedro here tonight, and he's probably off to the best start between the three drivers who are fighting for that position tonight. Obviously, maybe not beating Pedro in the sprint race, but finishing P4 is certainly nothing to be ashamed of in that sprint race. But is where he's maybe slightly faulted in the past few rounds in the feature race. I'm sure he'll drive a very good feature race tonight to hopefully beat Pedro and beat him in the championship. Although I'm sure that's not what Pedro would like. After that, we have Kia Kai. Maybe not the greatest of rounds last week for Kai, obviously being unable to race within the sprint race and then parking up during the pitch during the feature race. Obviously, we didn't see him tonight in the sprint race, but we are definitely seeing him tonight here in the feature race. and I'm sure he'll be looking at trying to score some points, well, some very good points to help maybe secure P6 or P7 in the standings. After that, we have Deadline. Deadline, a promoted driver from Split 2 for this round. We saw him drive very well in the sprint race, which saw him finish P4. Obviously, unfortunately, he picked up that penalty during the sprint race, which cost him P2 in the end. But I'm sure we'll certainly see some good driving from Deadline during the feature race, and I'm sure he'll certainly gain view positions in the standings if he can get a good result here tonight, Sarah.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Obviously, we saw Deadline finishing in P3 on the podium in the sprint race, and he's all season long he's been doing a phenomenal job in Lobby 2. Obviously, he's missed a few rounds, which did obviously mean that he didn't jump up to Lobby 1 straight away. But he's been, constantly in battles, fighting here, there, and everywhere, and it's good to see both United boys fighting for the podium spots in Lobby 1. But I will take you back into qualifying. I believe all the drivers should be on their last flying lap, so we'll keep an eye on everyone going round. But while I do, we'll just talk a little bit about the track. Obviously, we are racing at Circuit de la Sof, also known as LeMans. I probably didn't say that right, so apologies, everyone that knows how to say it properly. But as we all know, Le Mans is a pretty long but fast track. The track itself is 13.6 kilometres or 8.5 miles long. It is located just south of the town of Le Mans in northern France, and the circuit is the home of the 24 hours of Le Mans motor race. The track of Le Mans itself is enriched with history, so let's dive in and learn a little bit more about it before we head on and watch everyone on their last lap. But the circuit has gone through several layout changes in its 95-year history, the most notable of which was when chicanes were added to the 6 kilometre long Musselane Straight in 1990. The circuit comprises of private race-specific sections of the track, in addition to public roads which remain accessible most of the year. Its present configuration makes it one of the largest and longest circuits in the world. The circuit of Le Mans has become one of the classic courses in use around the world, thanks in large part of the 24-hour endurance race, which we're all aware of, and we've seen it become world famous. So each June, the eyes of the world fall on this 8-mile ribbon of tarmac as one of the great sporting spectacles, pitting man and machine against the rigours of day and night racing. Nothing else in racing comes even close to matching it, and up to 85% of the lap time is spent on full throttle, putting immense stress on engine and drivetrain components. Additionally, the time spent reaching maximum speed also means tremendous wear on the brakes and suspension, as cars must slow from over 200 miles an hour to around 62 miles an hour for the sharp corner at the village of Musselane. But Kirk, what do you think about Le Mans? Are you a fan? Are you kind of a keen watcher of the 24 Hours of Le Mans? Or just what's your general thoughts about this track?
I think you've summed it up quite well. Obviously, Le Mans is what can only be described as a legendary circuit up there with the Nürburgring and Spa. You can't be a motorsport fan and not know about Le Mans. It's absolutely iconic, whether it be the absolutely massive Mulsanne Straight or some of the really iconic corners such as the Porsche curves. And then obviously the iconic Ford chicane at the end of the lap. I guess you could say I watch it occasionally. I would watch occasional Le Mans, whether it be just a sprint race or maybe a few hour race. I've never stayed up to watch the whole 24 Hours of Le Mans. I've really only seen bite-sized parts of it. I guess it's a fantastic legendary circuit. A circuit that requires respect, a circuit that again you have to be able to really dial your car in well to be able to do well around here, because although it has plenty of long straights, you can certainly make a lot of time up at them Porsche curbs, Sarah.
Oh, 100%. Obviously, like we just said, a lot of the time obviously spent on full throttle, but it's crucial to get those sections right when you're hard braking. You know, the chicanes, it's important not to get those track limit penalties, which we saw a lot, well, not a lot, but quite a few drivers getting it in the sprint race. And I've just seen that the weather has slightly changed again for the feature race. Obviously we saw the track starting to dry out in qualifying, but you know, the rain working its way back onto the track. But let's run through the qualifying order for tonight's feature race. Kirk, if you would like to take the top 5, and I'll take the rest.
Absolutely. So maybe a little bit surprisingly, we have a deadline taking pole with a 4:18. Obviously, he must have set a lap time during the driest track conditions to be able to out-qualify McManley by 2.2 seconds. McManley in second place, a 1-2 for Team United. Again, I'm sure they'll be very happy with that. I'm sure McManley will be trying to overtake deadline on early in the race and try and push that gap out quite a bit. Then following that, we have LB Lewis in a surprise in qualifying, probably for some people. LB Lewis taking P3, getting the last of the bonus points. Fourth, we have Pedro, and then fifth, we have Midnight ISO.
Yep, and then just behind Midnight ISO, we then have Ripin de Terran, who, a surprising P6, but a well-deserved P6 by Ripin de Terran there. Just behind, we then have a Saber Venom, aka Haslett. Obviously, these two are matched on points, so it's going to be crucial going into the feature race as to claim, obviously, a position above each other. But just behind, we have Callum, who hasn't decided to set a lap, which is interesting. Of course, obviously we know how kind of dominant Callum has been throughout the season and in qualifying and in the feature race. So surprisingly enough, doesn't set a quali time, so it'll be a bit of a kind of a sprint race for himself for the first couple of laps as he works his way, you know, through the grid. I know he's not a huge fan of the wet racing and in the rain, and I think he struggles a little bit with the confidence in the rain. So hopefully, you know, he has a good race and he's able to kind of build his confidence lap on lap in the rain around Le Mans. But in P9, we have Hartman, who again doesn't set a lap time, and then KD the Kite also deciding not to set a lap time in quali. So yeah, 3 drivers not setting lap times, which doesn't put them at the back of the grid, but obviously, you know, they're keeping an eye out on what happens in front of them, and they may be able to make a few positions on the start. But before we get into the racing action, again, we'll just show you the championship standings as they are currently, and we can see across the board, like I say, Hassler in P15 and 16 with Ripin de Terran. They are tied, so it's going to be crucial between those two as to kind of who finishes in front of each other. But of course, you know, Deadline, I think Deadline will be jumping quite a few positions, currently in 13th, but I think that will definitely change after tonight. But yeah, obviously, a few people getting some bonus points, which helps, you know, towards the latter stages, which today is, you know, getting higher up in the championship. But yeah, Kirk, what is your thought about the quali? Any surprises for you? I know you spotted LB Racing up in third, and you know, quite a few people deciding not to set lap times.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know if they were possibly waiting for the track to dry up a bit and try and sneak a lap on the slicks. Possibly, I'm not sure what to say. Obviously, the likes of KD Kai and Edi Kai and Callum starting towards the back, we'll certainly see a bit of exciting racing. I think we've gone ready to the grid, Sarah.
Yep, and as you can see, quite a wet grid for the start of the feature race, and we're just waiting for those red lights. But Kirk, if you want to get ready and take us through those first corners.
As we get the race on the way, here we go. A great, fantastic start there from McManley. Maybe not the greatest start there from Deadline, as McManley jumps off the line very well. As we see Deadline again losing a position to Pedro, and possibly looking under a bit of pressure, heading to the first real corner under Midnight. Midnight up the inside of Deadline. Not the fantastic greatest of starts from Deadline, obviously dropping from first down to third as he manages to take the race line and get in front of Midnight ISO. McManley leads us away as he gets very sideways running down the hill. This track is absolutely soaked and everybody is sliding left and right. You see Callum obviously starting towards the back. He's made up a few positions offline up to P6. So it looks like LB Lewis has also lost a few positions off the start, dropping from P3 down to P5. Was that possibly a little bit of contact there from LB Lewis? As we got Callum is round in the background. We got a replay of that, Sarah. See what happened.
Yes, we have, and it looks like he was in the pack, like you say, making a few positions up, and all just a little bit of drifting coming out of that section. Then obviously the McLaren, once you get it into a drift, it's very hard to keep hold of it. So unfortunate for Callum, but obviously we've still got a lot of laps ahead of us. So I'm sure he'll be, getting his composure again and ready to fight through the pack again.
As we see absolute chaos down at the first chicane, as we saw Ripping the Terran go very deep into the first part, and then we saw Deadline maybe go a little bit of an outbreak himself just slightly and going for a little bit of an audacious look up the inside of Pedro, luckily avoiding most contact. Ripping the Terran is, after that slight mistake, Ripping the Terran is in 4th place. Katie Kyle unfortunately picking up a 1 second time penalty. I'm not sure quite where from. Katie Kyle taking it very easy into the second chicane, allowing LB Lewis to go through. LB Lewis still holding P5 for now. In P7 we have Midnight ISO. He probably needs to find a few positions if he really wants to take the fight to Pedro here tonight. And not least the same with Hartman as well. Hartman down in P9, obviously not having the greatest of qualifying or starts, as he has been unable to make any positions off the start. Heading in towards the hairpin, we have McManley followed by Pedro, followed by Deadline, Ripping the Terran, LB Lewis, Katie Kai with a 1 second time penalty. As we see both LB Lewis and Ripping the Terran go quite deep into the hairpin, which allows Katie Kai to overtake LB Lewis as he tries to come back onto circuit, and puts LB Lewis under pressure from Saber Venom, going up the inside of these little kinked right, and heading up into Indianapolis. Can LB Lewis hold it around the outside as it goes side by side? No, LB Lewis thinks better of it and backs off for now to let Saber Venom overtake him and take P6. It certainly seems quite a dramatic first few laps, Sarah. It looks like the rain might have stopped.
It does look like the rain has settled a little bit. Obviously, I was keeping an eye on the meter on the left, and it looked like it was borderline wet. A lot of drivers, deciding to go on the intermediate tyres, which is the slightly faster out of the two, but obviously the slightly less grippy one out of the two as well. So, a lot of drivers are being brave, as we see Pedro battling for the lead. Sorry to change the subject there, but yeah, Pedro getting out into the lead, but McManley, very close. These two are battling it out here, swapping places, possibly, swapping some paintwork as well. And a lot of drivers, engaging the first lap battles. But yeah, it's currently on that borderline of intermediates and wets. But if the rain has stopped, we'll probably see the track dry out pretty quickly. And I think, drivers will be very happy about that. Quite a few drivers, they don't like how the car kind of characteristics in the wet, as we see Deadline, or potentially going for that inside line. Pedro drifting a little bit, but I feel
Hartman.
Sorry,
just looking at it back. Hartman went a bit hot into the final chicane and got reset, and is now at the back of the pack behind Callum.
Ooh, that's one kind of thing around here. If you attack that chicane just that little bit too fast and take the wrong line, it does like to spit you out and kind of return you back. But as we see, Deadline managing to find his way past Pedro and looks to try and get past his team member McManley. See, 2 United boys, it is their last race for United, so like I say, I'm sure they're trying their best, end it on a high, and they definitely did that in the sprint race. But we could see this for 54 minutes. You know, these three battling it out, and obviously it'll be good to see. But LB Lewis in the background looking for a move as well, going onto that inside line, overtaking Ripper-Deterren, but does force Ripper-Deterren off and does let Haslett through. But Ripper-Deterren not willing to give up just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. As they are running this battle for fourth, they're all running it 2 by 2 as we head down in towards the first chicane. As we see Pedro getting quite a good run now on deadline, but choosing just to maybe save a little bit of fuel and lift off for now. But the Team United boys have certainly got this race under their control for now. As heading into the chicane, we see Hassler up the inside of LB Lewis, giving LB Lewis a bit of a squeeze there on exit, where LB Lewis keeps his nose in, but that compromises his exit, which allows Sabre Venom to get in front for now. And then we see Callum getting a run on both LB Lewis and Sabre Venom, looking towards the inside line, heading into the first part of the chicane. Will he be able to outbrake LB Lewis heading into the chicane? No, he can't. The slipstream from Sabre Venom allows LB Lewis to get a higher top speed to keep that position, Sarah.
I don't know about you, but that was some beautiful racing action across the whole grid. You know, going 2 by 2 into a chicane. You don't see that, and you only see that at Le Mans. Obviously, the track is quite wide, and it does allow that to happen. But you know, all drivers getting round side by side, very impressive.
I think because of the long straights, it allows all the drivers to stay quite close to each other as well. Unless there's a little bit of fuel saving going on, Sarah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of drivers will be keeping that in the back of their mind. Obviously, you know, they've got to look after their fuel, got to look after their tyres, and it doesn't look like the rain has gone. It looks like it is drying up, and drying up quickly. So obviously we'll get to that crossover point shortly, where it will be kind of a slick territory, but at the moment it is intermediates. You know, the intermediates really coming into play here and getting some heat in them, and you'll probably see the drivers be going a lot faster. And someone that's going a lot faster at the moment is Deadline, managing to get in front of his teammate McManley into the lead. I mean, what a showing Deadline's having here in Lobby 1 tonight already.
Absolutely, but I just can't help but think how much of an effect is this battling having for McManley. Obviously we saw Callum loop it in onto the Mulsanne straight on the first lap. That gap that was 10 seconds is now down to 1.7 seconds as Callum is really closing that gap in on the leaders, as the leaders battle probably be a little bit unnecessarily, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously I think, you know, the battle, all the drivers like to engage in a battle until they don't. Hartman getting very wide and into the gravel there, and it does lose him quite a few positions, and he is carrying front end damage. But yeah, going back to the lead, obviously, you know, McManley will be keeping an eye on Deadline just in front. You know, potentially maybe thinking that this could be the stage of very early, of course, but thinking fuel will come into play in a minute. He'll have to try and, you know, save as much as he can to make his strategy work, and I'm already interested as to what the strategy is for the drivers. But yeah, obviously it might be a few words in his ears being like, let me past.
We have 3 drivers in straight away. Katie Kai, Midnight ISO and Hartman. I can only assume they'll be going for the slicks, Sarah.
Oh, we'll have to keep an eye on it, as we see Pedro eyeing up a move on McManley. Pedro shaving quite a bit of that corner there. Might see him pick up a penalty. I think he's cleared on that one, but yeah, does get very close there. But that does open up, and it does let LB Lewis. He looks like he's on the charge, trying to catch this group in front of him, and not too far behind him is Callum. And as you can see, purple sectors. And it's going to be that thing. It's very similar to what we saw in Spa last week. Obviously, the drivers, if they are going on to slicks, it's going to be very difficult for these first few laps if you go offline. So I think they'll be a lot braver than what I would be.
I think absolutely. The one thing you have got to avoid on that slick tyre is the curbs. Although, as we see we see all three of our slick runners on the exit of the pits have all picked, well, both Hartman and Midnight Ice have both picked up 3-second penalties for crossing that pit exit. Obviously, that the track is very wet on the exit, and that is obviously not how they want to start their run on the slick tyre. You need to take it easy and avoid the curbs and everything on the slick tyres.
Yeah, and obviously the most dangerous place is that pit exit. So yeah, a few drivers, good spot by Kirk. A few drivers having a little bit of a troublesome time getting out of the pits, but if they can get it going, hopefully that means that the track is ready for slicks. Obviously, like I say, and like Kirk said, they're going to have to be very, very careful if they go offline at all, because it is still kind of on that crossover between slicks and intermediates, especially if any of the drivers like to attack the curbs, which I know a few of them do. Obviously, round here the curbs aren't as crucial as Spa last week, but I think they'll still have to be careful. But yeah, Pedro and McManley still are very close to each other, and we've got a little bit of a group forming as LB Racing dives to the inside. May have caught Pedro out there, as Callum also dives into the inside line. LB Racing follows him, but Pedro getting very drifty coming out of that corner. Potentially, a sign of the times as those intermediates start heating up too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we've seen the drivers trying to get onto the wet stuff as the inters at this point are overheating quite substantially. It's interesting to note that the soft runners the slick runners aren't really catching. I'm looking at KDK, and through the both chicanes, he's probably caught up about 2 or 3 tenths of a second. So maybe 1 or 2 more laps on the slick tyres just for them curb stroke more inter tyres might be the way to go, Sarah.
Yes, I definitely agree. Obviously, it's so difficult to make that call, to make the judgment between slicks or do I stay on intermediates for a few more laps. Obviously, going back to last week, McManley was, I think, if I'm stand corrected, he was the longest runner on the intermediates. He decided to go and keep going on those intermediates until he knew that the track was definitely dry. He could attack the curbs, as we still see, a lot of the drivers on intermediates tyres setting personal bests and fastest laps. So yeah, I'm not sure the track is quite ready for those slicks. Obviously, it looks very dry, but I don't know if it is.
Ran wide at Indianapolis and gone off the track. I would probably stay out at least 1 more lap on the inner tyre, as that's what we see. The front runners are staying out a little bit longer on those slick or on the intermediate tyres. The slick runners just aren't catching the intermediate runners at the moment. Midnight Ice, who's now the front slick runner, is actually lost time on this lap compared to the intermediate runners. So it is, although the main racing line is dry, the track is not ready for the slick tyres just yet, Sarah.
No, as we see Pedro running quite wide, which may look, he does lose a position to Callum, but the Porsche getting very drifty now as the rear tyres start to heat up and start to overheat. Ooh, Pedro nearly and very closely drifting round that corner, hitting all of those cones. They're poor cones, but the cones bounce right back, and I'm sure Pedro will as well. But I think that goes to show, it's definitely, crossing over to slicks, but the track not quite ready. As we see Deadline going onto the wet patch to cool those tyres down, and in the distance I can also see Rip and Deterran doing the same. So, drivers using their kind of initiative, going on the wet line, cool those tyres down to stay on them for a few laps.
Looking at it, again, although the track is very dry, because of how aggressive because you can't take the proper racing lines and attack the curbs on the slick tyres because the curbs are still too damp. The slick runners still aren't really gaining on the wet tyre runners, Sarah.
Yeah, potentially, making the call just that little bit too early. Obviously, as we can see, the front runners still on the intermediates. they're quite comfortably into the race now, and having minimal problems, and like I say, still setting personal bests. So yeah, I think maybe the judgment for the slick tyres may have come a few laps earlier, but that, that is the way of racing. Sometimes your strategy works, sometimes you do get caught out, and the track's not quite ready for you. Although saying that, obviously there is a dry line emerging, and it's not 100% dry yet. Obviously, still on the racing line, you can see that meter on the left, it's not completely dry, so some water definitely staying on the track. So I know we're not on board and we're not watching the slick runners at the moment. I can just imagine how difficult it is to keep in a straight line.
Absolutely, because especially in some of the faster corners, if you go offline just a little bit and hit a little bit of sand and water, yeah, you just go flying off. Although it looks like it may possibly be the crossover point, as the slick runners are starting to close that gap now. Although I still believe they'll come out behind the front runners. It looks like if you can keep it clean and keep it on track, slicks may be the way to go now, Sarah.
I 100% agree, as I've just jumped on board with Deadline, and those rear intermediate tyres are looking like they've seen better days, and obviously that does bring McManley back into the fight. The two United boys fighting it out, so we may see them coming into the pits in the next couple of laps, although that does look like a very grey cloud that we just saw there. So I think drivers will be keeping an eye on that weather radar as well. Obviously we can't see it, we're not weather forecasters, so we can't quite see what's ahead of us. So Drifty Deadline returns. That's all I'm saying. If anybody watched that on YouTube, we did nickname Deadline Driftline, as around Spa he was drifting it quite a bit in that BMW. But both United boys are pitting. Actually, I believe that's everyone that we saw from that battle there coming into the pits, except everyone everyone P1 to P6 coming into the pits, which then does leave us with Sabre Venom, aka Haslett, who has got some front end and suspension damage, so he pits in on this lap as well. So that will see our slick runners in net lead, although KD the Kai is quite far back. He's 30 seconds back from the top 7, so potentially, like Kirk alluded to, the front runners might still come out ahead of the slick runners.
Yeah, but you got to think about it, especially coming off the Porsche curb to go around Corvette corner. And if you go wide off there and hit some of the wet stuff, you as soon as you touch the wet stuff, you completely lose all grip, which could catch quite a few drivers out. Be interesting seeing people as they leave the pits, if they can handle the cars as they coming out on the wet. As we see McManley and Callum both spinning round. And Deadline joining on the race line just in front of Midnight Icer, and Pedro coming out before. Absolute chaos there on the wet part of the track.
It just goes to show, the I'm very sorry. It caught me off guard to see that so many cars facing the wrong way in the pit exit. It just goes to show, obviously, the majority of the track being ready, but the pit exit still being a very, very dangerous place to come out on. But obviously, a few drivers are navigating it and making sure that they don't spin around, and that does mean that we have our new net leader in KD the Kai, and Midnight, being promoted up to 3rd place, but Deadline just coming out in front. So yeah, a few drivers I think obviously will be a little bit kind of annoyed that they had a little bit of a spin there, but it just goes to show it is very difficult. I
think the only place realistically now that the drivers have got to worry about a wet circuit has got to be on the exit of the Corvette curve, as that is that place. If you run it slightly wide there and get onto the rumble strips, or even the anti-extension curbs, or the sausage curbs to say, on the outside of the corner, you are just instantly going to spin because of all the water that's out there.
Yes, and just a quick
As Katie
intermission.
Kai runs wide into the second chicane, Sarah, running over the water.
Oh,
And again, going wide and onto the wet stuff on the exit of the corner as well. That is cut his 5 second lead down to a sub 3.5 second lead. For one simple mistake, just outbraking himself, and it's cost him a little bit there, Sarah.
it
Possibly one of the
has.
slight little mistakes we see from Katie Kai during the races that build up and end up costing him a good result.
Obviously, yeah, it's still in P1 as we see Midnight and Deadline battling it out as well. And obviously we saw him swerving a little bit on the dry line, trying to get that wet rubber off, back to gain some grip. But yeah, unfortunately, loses 2 seconds, and we have lost Hartman, unfortunately. Potentially, maybe a disconnect. Not quite sure, but just a quick little kind of intermission. Thank you very much, Wakelin, for the raid and the follow. Really do appreciate it. You join us on our final Nighthawk racing event. Oh, as Midnight and Deadline come together. I will catch that on replay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's not what you want to see. It looks like maybe getting a bit aggressive there between the two drivers heading into Indianapolis. Midnight Icer getting out on that wet stuff, losing control and hitting into the side of Deadline. Not helpful for either driver's race, and certainly hands the ball to Pedro to secure P5 in the championship, Sarah.
As it stands, yes. We've still got 38 laps. And obviously, KD the Kite's got his lead back up to 5 seconds as we go down to 37 minutes, as I said, 38. Yeah, obviously, it just goes to show, we've been saying it for a few minutes now that the track is dry, but not all of it is dry. And it just goes to show, Midnight just clipping the tiniest little bit of the wet part of the track, and it does send him into Deadline. Obviously, both coming away damage free, which, helps. So they'll be ready, fit, fighting for another lap or so.
Yeah, hopefully looking maybe to fight maybe another day. So although contact is obviously something you never really want to see, they managed to avoid any severe damage. Just a bit of a bruised ego there for Midnight. Oh, as we see LB Lewis going for an audacious dive into the first chicane. Maybe a bit robust, but he has made that move stick on Deadline. I think you should get a replay of that, Sarah.
Sorry, say that again for me. Deadline before we can.
Yeah, it's LB Lewis went for a bit of an audacious move into the first chicane on Deadline.
Oh, unfortunately, just missed that. Obviously, just caught the back end of it, but it's obviously both coming away damage free. LB Racing on the charge, and that does mean that we then have Midnight and Deadline back on the same bit of tarmac, and we then have McManley just behind as well. So a battle between the three, separated by less than a second as we go into our first chicane.
Yeah, I think we've still got quite a few drivers all together. McManley down in P6, probably not really where he wants to be. Same with Callum in P7. It's certainly not been the best races so far for either driver, has it, Sarah?
No, and I think in general it's not been the easiest of kind of starts to a race. With obviously it started as a wet race, it's now gone to a relatively dry race, but it did take a lot longer than what it did at Spa to dry out completely, and I think that did catch quite a few drivers out. Like we said, the Midnight, Katie the Kai, being the first of the slick runners, and making the judgment call very early compared to the other drivers. But at the moment, it's not done them too badly, that judgment. But obviously, yeah, it's been a bit of a difficult race. Quite a few people out of positions. I don't know if you agree about that. Obviously Callum getting in a little bit of kind of a tussle in the first couple of laps, and obviously, like I said, with the rain, the McLaren is quite difficult to handle. So quite a few people out of positions, but nevertheless, everyone doing an amazing job, and the track does look pretty dry at the moment. But we've still got 34 minutes. There is the chance that the rain might swing back across northern France and might hit the track again as the drivers are driving round. But
Oh, Pedro. Oh, bit of a squeaky bum time there from Pedro running a bit deep into to Indianapolis. I'm not sure if you saw that, Sarah. On board with Pedro running a little bit deep and almost touched the wetter part of the circuit. That would have cost him P2 there.
oh yeah, just caught the back end of that, and it looks like just behind as well. LB Lewis did get quite wide as well. Potentially maybe following the lead of Pedro, but it just goes to show, if you carry that little bit too much speed, it could send you on the wet part of the track. Although saying that, I think most of the track is dry, apart from that kind of outer section and the curbs. So we'll probably see in the next few laps, blisteringly that's quite hard to say quickly. Blisteringly fast lap times by all of the drivers. As I'm very impressed. I don't know if you agree, but I'm very impressed with LB Racing so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably our two star drivers so far is Pedro and LB Racing. It certainly seems to be. I'm not sure if Pedro made another slight mistake there, but he certainly seems to be putting the pressure on Pedro. Pedro being almost 4 seconds a lap slower than LB Lewis last lap. Whether it be from some slight mistakes or the fact that LB Lewis might have the actual pace on Pedro.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if once LB gets past, which I assume he will do, if he can pull away and start challenging Kai's last lap. Lewis is only 0.2 slower than Kai, so certainly all to play for.
Yeah, and obviously setting up purple at sector 1 and getting very close to Pedro indeed. And I've got to say, like I said, I'm very impressed with LB Racing so far. He's definitely, the BMW not being the easiest to drive in these mixed conditions. He's definitely, he's switched on. He's ready to get back on the podium. It's been a couple races since we've seen LB Racing on the podium, and I think, he wants to end the season on a high. So potentially, a battle between these two for many laps to come. Although just behind, I can see, that group of Deadline, McManley and Midnight, creeping up, looking to get involved in this podium battle as well.
Absolutely. As we see, I'm not sure where he picked it up from, but McManley has picked up himself a half-second penalty, which might hinder his progress a little bit as he tries to hunt down both Deadline and LB Lewis. Is LB Lewis closed in towards the second chicane? Is he going to sit behind Pedro for now? No, he looks towards the outside, heading into towards the second chicane. Can he outbrake Pedro? Yes, he does. He holds it around the outside and he takes the race in line. And there's quite an impressive move going around the outside of Pedro in the second chicane there, Sarah.
Yeah, what a move. Just about caught that. And, very, very brave on the brakes, getting the job done. And, defending that racing line, shutting the door on Pedro, which, meant Pedro had to slam on the brakes. But a very defensive drive from LB Racing there. And, like I say, doing it remarkably well so far. And is very, very fast. But, obviously, as these two battle, I can see the gap between Pedro and Deadline closing. So we might get a four-way battle for the podium. But I've got to say, halfway in, well, just about halfway into the race, give or take 40 seconds. What have you thought of the race so far, Kirk?
It has certainly been a very crazy race out of simple terms. Obviously, we see the likes of McManley and Callum are positioned to where they usually would be at the halfway stage of the race. I'm certainly expecting to see a few more overtakes from the likes of McManley and Callum to try and close up and finish maybe a little bit higher up. Maybe see the likes of a recovery drive to see him finish on the podium. And I just want to say, well done, Kai at the moment, currently leading the race by about 11 seconds. But apart from that little mistake when he first came onto the slicks, he has been pretty much faultless ever since, Sarah.
I couldn't agree more. Obviously, that, like you say, that initial first outings on the soft tyres was a bit of a scary time for KD the Kai, as well as the other slick runners as well. But ever since then, he's found the dry line, made minimal mistakes. He's definitely turned the nitrous on that GTR, and the GTR looking at home round here, it's super fast. He's just set another fastest lap, and I'm sure he'll be aiming to get that 4 minutes down to just under 4. I think he's going for a 3 minutes time here, and by the end of the race, I think he'll definitely be able to do so. But yeah, I mean, we've had battles across the grid in the half an hour that we've had racing, but obviously this is the last race of the season, of season 2, and talking about the season as a whole, it's been quite a good season. We've had a lot of racing action, and in the off period we will be going back, clipping and making highlight reels of the best racing action, the best overtakes. So if anyone does have any in mind and wants to let the admin know of any moments you want us to go back and have a look at, and to make into kind of a highlight reel for everyone to remember, then please do let us know. And as we look forward to season 3, obviously we'll be asking for some new drivers, getting some new drivers in with new tracks, new ideas. So the more the merrier, and welcoming everyone on board. And obviously we've seen quite a lot of drivers in season 2. Some joining a couple races in. We have our very first kind of outing for a few drivers that I know of in Lobby 2. So a few drivers, their first race being the last race of the season. Quite confusing, but But yeah, I think all the drivers have enjoyed the season so far. I've enjoyed it. Watching. Have you enjoyed it, Kirk?
Oh, absolutely. I've enjoyed watching and commentating all the thrills and spills that we've seen throughout the entire season. Obviously, we've seen quite a few fantastic battles on track. Maybe not as much drama off the track, which is obviously what we never like to see. But I've certainly enjoyed the season, and although the race maybe getting a little bit spread out now, as we've seen throughout the season. I'm sure the rest of this race will be have its moments where it will still be exciting, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what new drivers could possibly challenge the likes of Swizzy, Kai, and Callum heading into season 3, Sarah.
Yeah, and so am I. Obviously, unfortunately, Swizzy hasn't been able to really race all of the races this season, which does unfortunately mean that he does have to pass the crown on to someone else, and that does look like it will be Callum. And Callum, he's pretty much dominated most of the races in season 2, and very deserving of a season 2 champion. Obviously, we'll double check the points just before we finish the stream, and we'll clarify if he definitely secures that P1. And obviously, I think the main battles is just behind him for that P2 and onwards. We've alluded to earlier and had a quick look at the championship standings. The championship standings are taken from round 7, so obviously they are bound to change after tonight and after it's been calculated. So we'll get someone, if we can, to do it quite quickly after the race is finished, so we can clarify to the viewers where everyone has finished, especially for the ones fighting for those championship battles. As we see, KD the Kai pitted on very minimal fuel, and I'm sure picking up a fresh set of rubber. But still on board with this Pedro and LB racing battle, as I can see Deadline just behind. So it's going to be a three-way battle as Deadline sets the new fastest lap, and he does take it below that 4-minute mark.
Yeah, the first lap of the race, that is sub 4 minutes. Interesting strategy, obviously, from KDK Midnight ISO pitting in slightly earlier than the rest of the pack. Obviously, that if they don't fuel save a little bit, it could possibly lead to them doing one more pit stop. Which obviously around here, which is about 50 seconds. Obviously not something you really want to do, and obviously as we see, the entire grid, well, basically pretty much the entire field is gone past KDK, who is leading during this pit stop. So it'd certainly be interesting to see if he can save enough fuel from this position to stay in line with the rest of the field, or whether he has to try and make a pit stop up, Sarah.
Yeah, I think strategies definitely are going to come into play shortly, as obviously we are over halfway into the race, and with the weather conditions, shall I say, obviously it's thrown a little bit of a curveball for some of the drivers, pitting slightly earlier or slightly later than expected, and obviously a completely different strategy to what it would have been if it was a completely dry race from the beginning. So yeah, I think a lot of drivers will be trying to make up the time initially because of that wet weather that we saw at the start, and like we've seen Katie Dekai being I believe he was one of the first, if not the first person to go on slicks, and he's the first person to pit, which for what should be or might be his last stint if he can fuel save enough to get to the end.
I don't want to put any seeds of possible doubt into the weather, but it looks like it's getting a little bit overcast heading down towards the hairpin, Sarah. And it seems like a little bit of mist possibly rolling in as well. I don't want to say my weather sense are tingling, but it certainly seems to be getting a bit darker out on track. As we see Deadline go up the inside of Pedro up at the chicane. Pedro getting a little snap of oversteer on the exit, and that was quite a good move there from Deadline on the at the hairpin, Sarah.
Yeah, it was. We just caught that, and we caught Pedro drifting in the background as well, coming out on the exit. So yeah, it just goes to show how close these two are as Pedro goes to that inside line, and these two going side by side through this section here. This battle is definitely not finished just yet, as Deadline lets Pedro through, and Pedro gets back. Oh, a little bit of a little bit of snap of oversteer on the exit. That Porsche looks like a very difficult to handle, as he's on the medium tyres, and I believe Deadline and McManley, so both drivers behind Pedro on the softer set of tyres. Pedro looking to go further into the race, although he'll have to pit again shortly because of the fuel. So potentially maybe an offset of strategy between these three drivers. Deadline and McManley deciding to go for those soft set of tyres, and they could probably go to the softs right until the end. Pedro decided to go on the mediums, as Deadline, I'm not sure, but he does pick up damage. I'll get that on replay, but it does look like he came off a little bit worse through that section there, picking up quite a bit of damage from hitting the wall on the right hand side, I believe, as we watch on replay. These going side by side, Pedro going onto the inside, and yes, Deadline just smacking the wall on that right hand side, picking up front end and suspension damage, which does result in pitting.
Obviously easily done, especially when battling another vehicle. Obviously it's not going to do his race any favours, as he has to now stop a few seconds longer to fix get that damage repaired.
Although
also on that previous lap, Katie Kai picked up a half-second penalty, which obviously it's not something you really want to be doing on your out lap.
Oh, definitely not.
Obviously easily done, but hopefully it won't cost him too much time in the long run compared to the people he's battling. So Obi Lewis and Pedro.
Yeah, although I was just that that pit stop couldn't have come at a better time for Deadline. Obviously he had to pit anyway because he was on minimal fuel, so I don't think he'll lose too much time in general because of that damage. Obviously maybe a few seconds here and there, but I'm sure he'll be trying to make it up as soon as he comes out of the pits. But yeah, I think that if that was any kind of later or any earlier into that lap, it could have affected his race a lot more than what I think it's going to.
Absolutely. Katie Kai coming out quite comfortably in front of LB Lewis. That gap was about 10 10-11 seconds before the pit stop. And it looks like even with that little half-second penalty Kai picked up, that gap is still about 11 seconds. Kai currently about 50 seconds off the lead, so it's certainly be interesting to see where he comes out compared to the likes of Pedro and McManley, as it looks like McManley is possibly saving a little bit of fuel there up behind Pedro.
Although it dives into the inside line of our second chicane, it gets it done. Pedro, giving him plenty of room as he gets out in front. But yeah, I gotta agree with you. Coming out of this section here, it does look a very kind of overcast. Although it does look a little bit bluer this time round. But yeah, potentially, obviously 19 minutes left. We could see this weather right into the end. I think the wet weather has blown over, and it's probably on a different circuit somewhere. But I've spotted Callum just behind. Had a little bit of a quieter race today, but obviously is our person holding the fastest lap currently with a 3:58. So he's found his pace. He's found the tyres. He's found everything's clicking in the right direction for Callum here.
Absolutely. He certainly doesn't look like he'll be ending this race in the P7 he found himself in as everyone was coming in for their second pit stops. I guess now it's all about trying to keep it consistent, trying to avoid any silly half-second penalties. And he certainly seems to be, although he may be pitting again at the end of this lap, he's certainly got pace as he is still going purple through these sectors. That gap to Pedro and McManley now at about 8 seconds. It looks like Pedro and McManley could possibly be under a little bit of pressure towards the end of this race coming from Callum, Sarah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Callum really excels in these dry conditions, and when the tyres they're not too worn, but they're worn enough. They're feeling grippy, and as we can see, obviously minimal fuel as well. I think when all of those stars align, Callum is very fast, and like you say, I think he'll be a threat to the podium runners at the end of the race. Although with the strategy, it might kind of place him back a little bit further than what he'd want to. As we see McManley coming into the pits with zero fuel, so cutting it very fine. But maybe, some may say, planning it to perfection.
I mean, yeah, certainly. He certainly planned it well. If he wanted to come in on 0% fuel, I'm not sure if I could have done that so perfectly if I was driving. But he gets the advantage of having the lightest car on the grid with as little fuel as that,
which does promote Ripon Deterrin into our net leader on track. Although Katie the Kite breathing down Ripon Deterrin's neck, Ripon diving into the pits. Katie the Kite carrying on into the last chicane and taking us on to lap 11. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how far Callum comes out behind Katie the Kite. Obviously, that gap before Katie the Kite pitted was about 25 seconds. It looks like Pedro is not taking a full tank of fuel, taking about some of the 3/4 of a tank, try and get that gap up to McManley and McManley behind. LB Lewis does just manage to hold off the likes of Callum and well, not quite McManley. McManley has jumped LB in the pits, but it seems like those gaps all around have certainly decreased. Or the advantage, I say, that LB had from the drivers around him has certainly been lessened during the pit stop, Sarah.
Yes, and as you alluded to, Pedro not picking up a full tank of fuel as well. A lot of drivers realising that this will probably be their last stint of the race. So some planning it to perfection, maybe some trying their bestest to be as fastest as possible. But we'll only tell at the end of the race if the strategy's worked or not. But that it's the gap between Pedro and Katie the Kite is not much, so potentially we could see a little bit of a battle between Pedro and Katie the Kite. Obviously, Pedro on slightly, maybe 1 or 2 laps fresher tyres than KD the Kai, but we all know how fast, both of these drivers are. So potentially, a battle that we could be treated to in the next coming laps or so. Although KD the Kai, it does look like he's used a bit of nitrous on the straight there, trying to create that gap and make it as big as possible. But as we kind of work our way down the grid, we'll just kind of say hello to all the drivers. We've not seen some of the drivers for quite a while, as we've been kind of focused on the front battles. But yeah, a lot of drivers, as you said, Kirk, earlier, obviously with the strategy, they are a little bit more kind of spread out on the track at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like Callum might have been able to jump midnight ice on the pitch. Obviously, Callum now up to P6. Unfortunately, picking up a half-second penalty. But, I don't think that will keep him behind too much longer behind the likes of Deadline and LB Lewis. I'm sure the gap from LB Lewis is 3.5 seconds to McManley. I'm sure that a podium is almost still on for Callum tonight if he plays his cards right.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of I think it's even though we've got 13 laps, which is not many laps when you think about it, it's all the drivers that we see kind of P1 to about P6 are in contention for a podium, and I think it'll be a fight right down to the bitter end, as we see Callum obviously picking up a half-second penalty, which will kind of put him on the back foot a little bit, but Callum likes to dominate the feature races, so I'm sure he'll make that time up pretty quickly. But yeah, all drivers, on slightly different strategies, slightly different tyres, and I'm intrigued and I'm interested to see who comes out on top and on the podium.
I was going to say this pack, the grid hasn't spread out really that much compared to some around. The top 6 is still, as you said, anyone could be in the podium within that top 6. That gap between first and sixth at about 19 seconds. So realistically, anyone could be on the podium during this race. Although maybe Callum, the fastest of our dry conditions drivers, in 6th. Everyone's still pretty close together, Sarah.
Yeah, although I just jumped on board with at Midnight, and Midnight is a little bit in kind of no man's land. He's in between the P6 and P8. 15 seconds from Callan and 31 seconds from Haslett. So, just enjoying, driving around the historic track of LeMans, having a little bit of more of a difficult time compared to some of the others. Obviously, he was involved in that first pack coming onto the slick tyres and maybe potentially, a few laps earlier than expected. But we all know Midnight, he likes to pick some unique strategies, but potentially today, that unique strategy might not have paid off.
So with about 12 minutes to go, probably if you're coming across the line now, you've probably got 3 more laps left. So for like Midnight ISO, Haslett and Riffin Terran, probably 3 more laps. I think seeing how we should have 3 more laps, I think the likes of KD, Kai, Pedro, anyone who's probably got less than half the tank, they're probably going to be cutting it quite close to the end. So KD, Kai, Pedro, Midnight, are all probably going to be a little bit tight for fuel towards the end of this race. Probably not the greatest news for Pedro, picking up a half-second penalty and knowing that he's probably not going to be able to push as much as he'd like to try and keep that gap up to McManley. As we see, LB Lewis has got 1 second time penalty that will almost certainly drop him behind Callum and the deadline at the penalty line, dropping him from P4 down to P6. Sarah.
Yeah, just going across the board, most of the drivers, setting some really good lap times, improving lap on lap, which is good to see. And a few drivers having kind of a little bit more of a difficult time on that starting stint where it was raining, and obviously we only retreated to a few laps of rain, but I mean we all take it. No GT7 providing us with a little bit of rain is always nice to see. It spices up the race a little bit as we see LB Racing going for a little bit of a move on Callum there, although he has got that 1 second penalty, which will drop him behind Deadline. But yeah, P1 to 6 quite close to each other on the track as we go into our final 10 minutes of the race, and it's flown by quite quickly.
Yeah, I think I feel like it has. Obviously, having some of the faster drivers out of position is kept the race interesting. Therefore, we don't realise how fast the time has actually passed by. Obviously, seeing Callum chase down and overtake both Deadline and LB Lewis on track certainly gives a bit of intrigue and interest to the race. Be interested to see with just under 9 minutes now left of this race, will he be able to close up that 6 second gap to Manley? Again, I think Pedro may be a little bit too far away now, but I certainly say race on for the battle for P3, depending if Callum can keep the pace up and keep the mistakes to a minimum, Sarah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. Obviously, which I believe, like I said earlier, Callum is season 2 champion, so he'll be looking to try and finish it on a high, finish it on the podium, and obviously we'll clarify that so that I'm not kind of just speaking random facts, but I think he'll be looking to finish it on a high. I mean, all drivers, I think, will be looking to finish the season on a high at such a difficult track. We don't come to Le Mans very often. It's one of those tracks that obviously, as racing fans, as motorsport fans, we all enjoy watching, but rarely we don't race it too much. So it's good to see it being used, and obviously the Le Mans track being the Nighthawk drivers racing around tonight. So it's good to see all the drivers on the grid around such a kind of historic track, which isn't used too much. But I mean, drivers making full use out of it, providing us with yet another entertaining race and a good kind of end to the season.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see Deadline and LB Racing fighting over P5, maybe a bit optimistic there, trying to get around the outside over Lewis, but he certainly put Deadline off and made Deadline run wide, and Deadline obviously falling for the trap and going wide, picking up that half-second penalty, which will certainly not do his battle for P5 any good with LB Racing. Other battles I saw, Ripping the Terran and Haslett were pretty close on track, but that gap seems to have extended a bit now to about 2 seconds. As we see, Deadline again, maybe a little bit opportunistic there from Deadline up the inside, trying to hold it there with LB Racing. LB Racing again now has the slight advantage of the better run off the corner. It'll be interesting to see, can Deadline challenge him even with this half-second penalty into the next chicane. I'm sure Deadline will want to be in front heading into that penalty line. Deadline looks to do the switch over, the little dummy to the right, and then back up into the inside. Can he outbrake LB Racing? Not quite. He has to settle in behind for now, Sarah.
Yeah, another defensive line and move from LB Racing. A very kind of shut the door and slam the door on Deadline, saying you're not getting past me, especially through here, which obviously means Deadline doesn't pick up another half-second penalty. But I mean, I'm loving this racing between the two BMWs. Battle of the BMWs with about 5 minutes remaining. So I'm intrigued to see who comes out on top out of the battle of the BMWs. These two do have a history. They have raced before in Lobby 2, I believe, and we were treated to quite a few laps of the battle of the BMW. So they're back racing against each other, and at the moment, pretty close to each other. We know the Deadline with that penalty, it will drop him back quite a bit, but obviously with 5 minutes remaining, it shouldn't affect him too much, and I'm sure he'll be back trying to claim that 5th place.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe a little bit more difficult for Deadline, because obviously that 1 second penalty will cause him to lose the slipstream as he tries to dummy out LB Lewis there. We're going up the inside. Oh, he gets very sideways on the exit of that corner, Sarah.
Drifty deadline returns.
Maybe a little bit clenched there, if you know what I mean.
Yes, so I definitely know what you mean. And obviously, deadline getting rid of that penalty, like I say, has dropped him back to about 3 seconds. So it's going to be a very tall ask to catch LB Racing again with the pace that LB Racing has currently. But yeah, I mean, I've the battle of the BMWs. It was a good couple of laps of battling, and like I say, it was good to see them two battling it out again. A lot of respect, and you know, very kind of closely matched. Both obviously in the same car, both kind of around the same sort of skill. So you know, it was a bit too hard to call who was going to come out on top, but unfortunately, deadline falling foul to the track limits of Le Mans.
I just wanted to say to you, Sarah, look at Takeda Kai's fastest lap is a 3 minute 58.017, and last lap Callum set a 3:58.018. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've just clocked on that. Oh my god. I think that's the closest, you know, fastest lap battle that we've seen. I mean, I think Callum will be, obviously you just set a purple sector 1, and I'm sure you know Katie the car will be coming back with an answer as well. But oh my god, between the two, you know, if that doesn't show how close these two are, I don't know what will. You know, numbers don't lie, and it shows you know that obviously Katie the car over a 3 minute 58 and .017, and Callum with a .18. They're using every inch of the track to kind of beat each other, although Callum did look like he ran a bit wide but managed to get back on track. But Callum, another purple sector. I'll keep on board with Katie the Kai.
Have to save. Katie Kai, looking at his fuel, may have to save a little bit of fuel to get towards the end of this race. So I think any hopes for him getting fastest lap is over. But Callum fuel is not a problem. Not a problem for fuel for Callum, and therefore he can go flat out to the end of this race and really try and hunt down the likes of McManley in the final 2 laps that we have left, Sarah.
Yeah, and setting fastest laps, I think Callum is definitely on the mission to, as he's about 7/10 up from his current time. So that looks like he's got fastest lap in the bag. Obviously, anything can happen. He's still got about half a lap to complete before getting that fastest lap. But, you know, I think that bonus...
Oh, he goes very wide into the hairpin. Callum does. Possibly, yeah, there we are. He's lost that entire advantage that he had, Sarah, just from one mistake at the corner. Obviously, it's a long lap. He could possibly still find a little bit of time, but it won't do his goal of trying to get fastest lap any good.
No, unfortunately it won't. But it looks like he might have potentially one lap. I'm saying maybe because the time obviously at 1 minute 20, and the drivers are getting close to the start-finish straight, but they are still quite far away. So we might get one more lap in for a few drivers. So Callum might have one more opportunity. But yeah, it just goes to show, you know, making that slight mistake going into that hairpin there did lose him quite a bit of time. But you know, it shows how fast Callum is, and I think he was still purple a tiny bit. I think it was kind of like, it was less than a tenth, so you know, cutting it fine. So he might potentially still get the fastest lap. You know, I think Katie the Kai will be a little bit kind of upset about that if he does beat him by only a tiny bit. But yeah, a good spot with Katie the Kai not having a lot of fuel, which means he is definitely going to have to save. And obviously Pedro is about 7 seconds behind, so it's going to be close between the two, as we see Callum about to go into the double chicane and go over the start finish straight. So we'll see if he did secure the fastest lap.
It looks like Katie Kai decided he's not got enough fuel to do one more lap.
No.
And he's gonna wait. that gives him that. Unfortunately, costed him. Oh, he started the final lap. He's gone slightly too early, Sarah. He's gonna have to go round for one
Oh
lap.
no! And Pedro as well has got the flashing red light of doom with the fuel, so he might have to take it careful as well. But as we see the podium runners on a victory lap, we have LB Racing coming home in 4th, Deadline in 5th, Midnight in 6th, and we then have Sabre in 7th place, Ripin Deterran in 8th, and I think potentially maybe a little bit of a retirement for KD the Kai, not wanting to go around at very slow speed. So that's unfortunate. He will lose quite a few points because of that. But it just goes to show, strategy, it does play a huge part in these races here. And maybe potentially, pitting and not taking off enough fuel did cause him to lose the win. But that does promote Pedro into our net lead.
I don't think Pedro's going to make it. I don't think Pedro's going to have enough fuel to make it to the end of this race, Sarah.
No, looking on board with Callum and McManley, they've got considerably more fuel than Pedro, so Pedro will have to take it careful if he wants to save any fuel. But obviously that will lose him quite a bit of time with about more than a half a lap to go.
I don't think he has to make it. He has to make the fuel last another 1 minute 30, Sarah. Because obviously that's the countdown time. If Pedro can just lead for a little bit longer till that time runs out, he should be able to hold first place and win his first race in this league. So what is happening on this final lap of the race? He just has to hold on till the timer runs out.
Yeah, although the gap is about 5/10, so that it's dwindling. The time is dwindling. Obviously, we've got about a minute left, but the gap is down to half a second. And obviously, McManley in the slipstream of Pedro behind that Porsche 911. And it looks like it is going to go in the way of McManley, favouring McManley. He's picking up much more fuel. Pedro looks like he's about to run out of fuel with about 40 seconds, so he might be down to 3rd place as well. But unfortunate for Pedro, looked like he was on for his first win.
He might not even get second at this. Rate, as that gap to Callum is now 2.6 seconds. And Pedro, I think he's running out. I think he's almost out of fuel, Sarah. That no more left on the bar. That gap to Callum now 2.2 seconds, 2.1.
It's gonna be close.
Only 2 seconds. Pedro's out of fuel.
Oh, it's gonna 3, 2, 1. Oh no! Pedro loses P2 as the timer goes down to 0 seconds. Oh no, that's very unfortunate. Oh, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. Pedro looked like he was on for his first win and then loses out and gets 3rd place. But, still 3rd place. Nothing to shrug your shoulders at. Still a podium at the end of the day. But, oh my God, Kirk.
What a race.
What a race indeed. That last lap, kind of, whatever you want to call it, had me on the edge of my seats. I was speechless. Obviously 1 minute it was Pedro out in the lead, and then obviously we saw that Pedro had to look out for his fuel. McManley, running away with it, and right down to the bitter end, Callum manages to clench P2, and Pedro unfortunately running out of fuel right at the end. Very unfortunate.
Oh, unlucky. For Pedro to take the lead heading on to the final lap of the race, and then just not having that, and in the pit stop, if Pedro just spent a tiny bit longer in the pit stops, even half a second longer, he would have held on and been able to beat, maybe not McManley, but definitely Callum. That was so unlucky in the end there for Pedro. His strategy just being a little bit too aggressive with the fuel. And in the end, that really cost him, Sarah.
It did, and I'll be kind of interested to hear from his point of view in the driver's interview. But as we have a look, obviously we see McManley winning the feature race, which I'm sure he'll be very, very happy indeed. And before we go over to say hello to the drivers, we'll just run you down the finishing order of the grid. Obviously, we'll just quickly show you as well that is the end of season 2. We have completed all 8 races of the season, and what a season it's been. Obviously, as you can see with the calendar that we had, we just have quite a few interesting tracks, some with weather as we saw today and last week at Spa. But it's been a lovely season. I've enjoyed every second of it, and I truly mean that. As we saw right down to the bitter end, the drivers like to provide us with quite a lot of entertainment, so I'll be looking forward to season 3 already. But I think we should have a look, see the finishing order, and then go and say hello to all of the podium room drivers and any driver that just wants to general have a little chit chat with us before we end the stream and end season 2 as a whole. So Kirk, if you would like to run down the top 4, 5, and I'll run down the rest.
Absolutely. So, very, very fortunately, on the final lap of the race, we have McManley taking the lead off Pedro as Pedro was running around trying to save a little bit of fuel. In the end, Pedro just couldn't quite hold on. Just took that tiny bit of fuel, a tiny bit more fuel, and Pedro would have won his first race. But unfortunately, that's not how it played out. And McManley reaps the reward of taking that little bit more fuel and wins tonight's feature race. Taking second place, and which should almost all but guarantee the season 2 champion, Callum. Fantastic driver and drove multiple fantastic races throughout this entire season. Well done, and congratulations for Callum for being, well, I'm sure he is our season 2 champ. P3, so unfortunate for Pedro. I cannot reiterate enough. If Pedro just spent 1 or 2 more seconds in that pit stop taking that tiny bit more fuel, he would have won this race. Very unlucky, but I'm sure he'll bounce back stronger for next season. And then in for probably surprise of the day, LB Lewis taking P4. A fantastic drive, took full advantage of all the chaos and all the crazy weather to finish in a fantastic P4, Sarah.
Sorry, I was muted there. Pro streamer and that. But I was just saying, in P5 we have Deadline, and Deadline's first feature race in Lobby 1, and I think he's definitely enjoyed the action. Obviously we'll get to hear from him a little bit in a second about the sprint race and the feature race as a whole, but I think he's enjoyed his experience. It's probably been a bit of a challenging race from his perspective in the feature race, but I mean a P5 finish is pretty good going, and like I say, both United boys finishing on a high, and I'm sure they'll be very happy and proud of themselves. In P6, just behind, we have our very own Midnight ISO, the other co-founder of Nighthawk Racing, and obviously has been a pleasure to work with Midnight across, doing the commentary of Lobby 2, and I think, he'll be very happy with a P6 in such tricky conditions, and I think he'll be glad that I didn't actually catch him spinning today. The one race of the season where I didn't catch him spinning. So, Midnight, I hope you're happy. In P7, we then have Haslett, and again, a very kind of difficult race in that BMW in the wet initially, then in the dry, but did a remarkable job, and he's done a remarkable job all season long. So it's been a pleasure to have Hassett on the grid. In P8, we have Ripon Deterrent in that 4GT, a very difficult car on tyres and on fuel. So it's been quite a challenging race from Ripon Deterrent's point of view, but a pleasure as always. And I was just glancing over to the drivers' best laps. All drivers, within a few seconds of each other. So it goes to show how evenly matched all the drivers are. But again, a very good drive from Ripper Deterrent in P9 after a very, very unfortunate DNF right at the end, running out of fuel. KD the Kai, which does obviously mean that he does DNF, but does get the fastest lap of a 3 minutes 58.017, which was very fast indeed. Obviously, Callum looked like he was on for the fastest lap, but loses just because of a mistake into a hairpin. But in P10, after an unfortunate disconnect, we then have Hartman. But that rounds us off for the grid of the last feature race of the season. And before we go and say hello to the podium room drivers and any driver that wants to have a quick chat with us before we end the stream, it's Kirk, how was the race today, do you reckon, from your watching? It's been another one with mixed conditions. Obviously, we saw mostly a dry race with a few kind of laps at the beginning with some wet conditions. But as a whole, what did you think of the race?
I thought the race was absolutely fantastic today. We saw a jumbled up qualifying because of the weather and the long length of track. We saw again a jumbled up race, which obviously we saw fast runners like Manley and Callum being forced to work their way through the pack to be able to get to where they finished, and we saw saw an absolutely insane finish, which obviously unfortunately saw Pedro miss out on getting his first win, unfortunately. And then obviously see McManley win. A very good race to round out the season, and I say bring on next season where hopefully we'll see the same amount of craziness, Sarah.
Yeah, and I think that goes without saying with the Nighthawk crew. There is a lot of craziness, a lot of last lap battles, but I think we should go and say hello to the podium room drivers. We'll get ready to bring them along. I see that we have Deadline, McManley and Pedro. Who do you fancy chatting to first, Kirk? I'll let you decide this time.
I think it's only fair to go with the winner, and that's got to be McManley first, Sarah.
Perfect. I will drag McManley in to the podium room, which we should probably go and join. So we will be over into the podium room in just a second. We'll go and say hello to McManley. Hello. Hello. How are you? How's the sprint and feature race from your perspective?
I got a quick question first. Can we get Deadline in here as well? We want to do our last interview together with as part of United.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was very much a nice last race. I think someone said it in the Discord saying hopefully we have a good last race. I think that's about as good as it could have went actually.
Yeah, I mean, what a race it was. Deadline did join for a split second and then left, so he did disappear. I did not bring him in. But yes, going back to the race itself. Hopefully, we'll get Deadline back in just a second, or Driftline, as I should say. But yeah, I mean, what a sprint, what a feature race. We were saying obviously about your last race representing the United crew, and I think you definitely did them proud. Finishing both the sprint and the feature race in such high positions. But yeah, obviously very happy, very proud, and I will pass you over to Kirk, who I'm sure has got quite a lot of questions, and I will try and get Deadline back in.
Congratulations, Stay McManley, winning the feature race in very fortunate circumstances. I've got to ask you, starting the final lap of the race, maybe going one lap extra than what Katie Kai and Pedro expected. Do you expect to win?
I mean, I wasn't expecting Kai to run out of fuel, but I was kind of expecting Pedro to run out of fuel at the end there because I took 5 laps and I think Pedro took 4. I could see he came out about 9 seconds ahead of me. when it was like 5/10 between us beforehand. So I knew he took a lot less fuel. So I knew if there was going to be an extra lap, Pedro would definitely be struggling. But I didn't expect it from Kai. I do know Kai went a lot longer on the strategy, but it was literally just a case of I saw Kai literally stopped at the line, and I was like, "Oh God, this is lining up to be really good." And then really after that, it was just a case of chasing the race finish countdown. The 3 minutes. Because originally I was like, "Oh yeah, I have until the end of the lap to overtake Pedro," and then I realized, "Oh, I actually only have what, like 3 minutes, which is you probably would have gotten up to just before the Porsche curves." So I was like, "Yeah, I got to overtake him while I can with the AMG not having the best straight line speed today." I had to make sure I made a lunge into the corner, but I got lucky because he was really fuel saving on that straight, so I was able to gain on him. But man, it was crazy. I was kind of just chilling in third, like pretty far away from everybody else, and then all of a sudden the stars aligned.
Obviously, with that result today, I do believe that it secured you P2 in the championship for season two. Obviously, P3 in season one, P2 in season two. Are you going to go for? Are you going to try and win it in season three?
Uh, Pretty ambitious. So I like the ambitiousness, but I'm not sure. As I said, I was kind of wondering whether I was going to do season three as a driver or as kind of admin, kind of just like chilling and all that, because obviously I mightn't be here for a lot of the races this summer. So I guess now that I've won some races, maybe I'll have to reconsider it. But as I said, I might not be able to race at all, to be honest, in season three. So it's just a case of seeing if I'm able to. If I can't race, you'll see me kind of just moping around doing some admin stuff and testing cars and all that. But I'll have to make that decision over the next month or two whether I'll actually be racing or not. If I do race, I'm sure first would be nice, but I'll be honest, Callum obviously has had the consistency all season to be able to get them first finishes all the time and not just have one or two of them. He's gotten quite consistent finishes and he's been able to stay up on the podium pretty much all the time. So to challenge that would be pretty hard. I do think I did better this season in terms of results. But yeah, it has to go up an even higher step than what it is now to be able to challenge them.
Then just one final question. Obviously, we saw heading in towards both qualifying and the feature race tonight that we saw the rain come in. Obviously, I believe you said last week you didn't want any rain. What were you first thinking when you saw all that rain?
I mean, my first thought was really with qualifying the case of will it dry up by the end of qualifying, which it did. But um, obviously qualifying first 10 minutes of quali is a reflection of the first 10 minutes of the race. So I knew then it was going to dry up pretty quickly because it dried up after about 15 minutes. So the only problem was though is that the Mercedes, the AMG, is not very good when it goes from like inter-wet conditions to like inter-dry conditions where you're driving the inters on a dry track. It doesn't feel very friendly. It feels quite nervous. So I was kind of dropping a lot of time to like Lewis and Deadline when it got kind of drier on the inter tires. But once we went on to the softs, then it was still really, really like I was really nervous because obviously I'm pretty sure you saw the calamity coming out of the pit lane. But yeah, it was the rain. I didn't want the rain, but at the same time, yeah, it kind of worked in my way and didn't at the same time. It helped me get P2 in the qualifying, but then obviously I was struggling on pace at the start of the race. So it's a double-edged sword. It's like sometimes it can help you, and then sometimes it'll just stab you in the back and make you drop down a few positions. So
That's pretty much everything that I've got to ask you. Congratulations today. I say the only really thought I could put towards you was maybe a little bit too eager on the throttle coming out of the pits for when you first going to drive. But other than that, you drove an absolutely spectacular race. Obviously, gaining or gaining, I say, benefiting from both Katie and Pedro running out of fuel. I'm not going to take that away from you. It was a very well driven and very well deserved win today, Mac.
You're
Thank
obviously
you.
picking up a double win as well. Very impressive. And thank you for all the help behind the scenes as well. If you hang about for a few minutes, we'll just interview Deadline, and then we'll let you both United boys celebrate your positions, and have a little chat amongst both of you on stream. But Deadline or Driftline, shall I say?
Hola.
How are you doing, and how was both of the races for you today?
Honestly, when I was coming into this race, I wasn't too sure how it was going to be, knowing that, coming from Lobby 2 and Lobby 1, it's a whole different field of brand new drivers. I haven't really driven since the first round, and so on it. But honestly, how it turned out today, I am so shocked with myself. I don't know what else to say, really.
I mean, you did an amazing job, especially in that sprint race as well. I was saying that to Kirk about both you United boys on the podium, doing the team proud on I believe at the last race that you're a part of Team United. But yeah, very very happy for you, and I'll hand you over to Kirk, who will ask you a few questions, and then like I say, I'll let you and Matt kind of celebrate as Team United.
I think the first question I got for your Deadline is, where did that qualifying lap come from? That was an absolutely magical lap to stick it on pole. What was it like from your perspective?
I I don't know. Oh man, I don't know honestly. I wasn't expecting it to be on pole. I was thinking, surely, probably top 5. But oh man, yeah, it's oh, I'm lost for words honestly for that qualifying, because even I don't know. I think I really helped when it came to how the session ended as well, because I think, if I'm correct, it was Callum who was probably the closest one to set a quicker lap time. But I think once he got to the pit exit, obviously the timer went out, so I managed to sneak in on pole. And as I said, as I keep on saying, I still don't know how I managed to do it, but I'll definitely take it.
And then obviously we saw you start on pole, but end up finishing P5 in the feature race. Where do you think it went from in the feature race to stop you from getting on the podium?
No, it was me, just better drivers. All the drivers out there today were really rapid. I couldn't really compete, because I knew even if I had pole, I would still probably finish outside the podium spot. Knowing me, when it comes to the feature race, for at least the first season and for the top lobby, I can never seem to materialize my good quality performance. But well, yeah, I think it was definitely more of a case of at the end. If I probably saved a little bit more fuel, or probably followed Mac with staying out for an extra lap, I might have been a little bit quicker and a little bit more ahead than, say, Lewis, and might have also taken the opportunity to pinch Pedro and the Kai, if I'm correct. I'm just not too sure if if I could catch up to Calino. He was rapid today.
No worries. That's pretty me all out of questions. Looking towards next season, what would be your goals?
My first goal was to actually stay in the highest lobby this time. As much as I liked being in lobby 2 and driving with those folks, and they're so honestly, there's nice beautiful people there are on track for lobby 2. It's just that I feel like I probably should have been in lobby 1 a little bit sooner. But hey, you know what? That's going to be my target, to stay in lobby 1 and at some point, get my first feature race podium slot, because I've been struggling to do that and I haven't done it yet. So yeah, that'll be my next target.
No worries. Congratulations today for the podium in the sprint race, and then you qualified on pole, and you drove a very impressive feature race as well. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to Mackinder. Well done for Team United.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, just echoing those words as well. Yeah, both of you, thank you very much for all of your help and everything, and for being some fast drivers out on track. But I will let you both, celebrate as Team United and say whatever you want to say, and then I'll bring Pedro in and we'll have a little conversation with Pedro. So take it away, Team United.
I don't know where to start. Mac, do you have anything to say?
I mean, I'll just say, obviously, a lot of people will know me, especially Midnight and Sarah and Pedro and all them, Ziggy as well from the SRF leagues. They would recognize my United AMG number 12 from miles away. So, honestly, I know I didn't race in the United AMG last season, but it's going to be sad not having United around. It was a great team. We had some very nice moments together, some very nice races, and I gotta thank obviously everybody, all the members that were on the team. Thank you for thank you for your service. And thank you for being very cool and racing late night races with us. And thank you very much, Deadline, of course, as well, for first inviting me into the team. And yeah.
Yeah. Man, it's been since this team started, since 21, me and Misty Leaf, when the team was first called the Dead Miss Racing Team, and then since evolved into, well, when I first met you, Mac, it was still called Dead Mist, if I remember.
Yeah, it was.
Only until a couple months later, we all rebranded to now what we all know and love, or loved, called United. And ever since then, with myself, you, Timo, Bassaby, Gabe, Piper, Snorf, TN, and all of them drivers, everyone's just done a great job being part of the team, being part of a family. And it's going to be a shame just to disband the team, but it's been an absolute roller coaster of emotions for this past couple of weeks. And yeah, I'm just really happy how it ended. And yeah, I'm just hoping for the future, really, to see where everyone goes and what we do next. Really, I'm just here saying thank you so much for the guys on this side as well, for all the guys for you both, Kirk and Sarah, of course, you both here, Midnight, Pedro, and I can never say his name. The other one,
Ziggy.
Oh yeah, obviously Ziggy. I was thinking of his other name. Oh my god! But yeah, Ziggy, all of you guys, over the past couple of years, racing with each other. I don't know what else I can say, really. Just thank you so much for being here with us. And yeah, again, here's to the next couple of years, hopefully. No one knows where it will take us. It's just going to be a real shame to leave the team and see the team go away, but here we are.
Oh, don't get emotional, Deadline.
Right, don't say that. You're going to get me emotional now. Don't say that, boy.
Just echoing Midnight's words, thank you to the both of you United gents for the last couple of years of close racing, both on and off track in different games as well, obviously, but mostly on GT7 and GT Sport, obviously. A couple of years of some close racing, and I'm sure the future is bright for you too, and full of opportunities, so grab them all and enjoy. Obviously, you never know what's around the corner, and good luck, and obviously wishing you all of the best with whatever direction you're going next. But here's to the future for you both, and like I say, I'm sure it's bright, and we look forward to seeing you in season 3. But thank you both for tonight. Appreciate it, and like I say, you definitely did the United team very proud tonight.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Also, yeah, thanks everybody on the admin team as well. Just final words. Thanks everybody on the admin team. Obviously, I joined mid-season, so I didn't have much input on the season 2, but hopefully I'm looking forward to working with you guys season 3 and on season 3. And yeah, thanks for the league. It was very, very fun, and thanks to everybody who raced as well. It was great fun. Thanks for the clean racing.
And thank you for being here both. Appreciate you both as always. But I will let you go and enjoy the rest of the evening. But it's a massive thank you from both me, Midnight, and I'm sure Kirk, Pedro, all of the admin team especially. Thank you to both of you. And hopefully, we'll chat in between the break. Obviously, get things put in the diary, plans put in place. But I look forward to chatting to you both in the near future. But yeah, like I say, go enjoy the victory, especially Mac, the double victory, the P3 in the sprint race deadline, and I will chat to you both shortly.
Thank you. See you later, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
And as we see, I see Pedro patiently waiting in the podium waiting room, so we'll bring him in. Sorry for the wait there, Pedro.
No worries.
I hope you hope you're all right. Obviously, the United boys are just having final words as a team. But how was the race from your perspective? Obviously, picking up 2 podium places in the sprint and the feature. Obviously, P2 in the sprint, P3 in the feature. Before we ask any questions, kind of just talk to us about the races from your point of view.
Yeah, just want to say as well, massive shout out to Deadline and Mac, and as I was hoping for it to happen before the races started, I think they went out in style, really, and I can only congratulate them both on what it was like a very good season from both of them, as well as for the battles we had today in both races that were always very clean and respectful. Although a little bit on the edge sometimes with with that line being side by side, but always fair and good racing from him. So just want to thank him for that entertaining side. I think really in kind of both races, as strange as it may seem, I think like I missed out on 2 possible wins today to an extent. But I think the sprint. It was always like, even if I was in first place by the end of the last lap, it was always going to be difficult to stay there, and Mac was a worthy winner. And kind of same for the feature. I'm pretty disappointed in a way with the feature because kind of mixed feelings, because I feel like it was a wasted opportunity at a win. Especially with it being down to something that I never do, which is I thought I had enough fuel, but I clearly should have overfueled ever so slightly. The only time I didn't just happened to be when I was fighting for a win, and it is what it is. I know I'll work towards having another opportunity of winning a race in the future, although it's not necessarily easy considering the caliber of drivers we have in the league. Finishing with the P3 is bittersweet, but I have to be happy with it because at the end of the day it's a podium, and I think was by far the best round I've had the entire season. So also congratulate Callum on being crowned the season 2 champion. Was very, very good from start to finish, and it just clearly shows that he's a worthy winner of the championship. Following the footsteps of our very own and beloved Swizzy, which is always good. No easy shoes to fill.
Yeah, couldn't agree with those words more. But Kirk, I'll hand the floor over to you if you've got a few questions or anything you want to ask Pedro.
Absolutely. So Pedro, double podium today, very well done.
Thank you.
At what point? The most question I want to ask is, at what point did you realise that you were in trouble with the fuel in the feature race?
Well, I think when actually just in the lap, in my out lap, after I left the pit for the last time, I was kind of wondering whether I was gonna be able to make it to the end. I tried to fuel save as much as possible, but it still wasn't enough, and yeah, I got to miss out on an opportunity to win because of it. But at the end of the day, like these things happen, and I can only learn from this mistake going forwards and hopefully not repeat it.
And how do you think you say you got to learn from this experience as a whole, losing it on the final lap? What do you think you'll change for the future into season 3?
Well, like from this race, really, uh, I was maybe just a little bit nervous and impatient. Let me making a few mistakes in this race, and obviously, I think that strategy mishap was the biggest example of it today. Just I guess I was just too eager to get back on track, and I miscalculated. Really, I just thought it was going to be enough, but yeah, just couldn't make it work. And I guess one thing I definitely need to improve going into season 3 is in these tracks that have dynamic weather. I need to um, just to work on my pace in kind of conditions that are going from wet to dry, because that's where I struggle the most once again in this race, just like I did at Spa. And it's something that I definitely need to work on. Just mainly just lack of confidence in the car, really, and just was way too afraid to just lose it in a place where I shouldn't. But yeah, I think that's mainly it, really. Obviously, I can always learn a few more things from all the other drivers, especially how to come a bit quicker around certain tracks. Um, and yeah, just really working on under pressure a bit more.
I think, and the final question that I want to ask you is about qualifying. Do you think the intermediates was the best tire to qualify on in the end, or do you think you probably could have snaked in a lap on the slicks? Then, do you feel like you possibly could have got more from qualifying, possibly challenged for pole, deadline, or Mac for a top 2 or pole?
Yeah, because I was thinking to myself, I think the inters were the right call just because the track was still uh, pretty wet in certain sections. Um, so I think I did the right call in that sense, but obviously the quality lap was. I had just two major mistakes, and yeah, I was also a bit upset that I couldn't really fight um, for pole, because I reckon I could have had it, but once again, like when you make these sorts of mistakes, and obviously with drivers like just very competent, very good drivers around, it's one of those things like you really can't make any mistakes, and it was clearly an example of it.
No, it's maybe maybe a little bit. Well, I think that's everything for me, Pedro. Obviously, maybe a little bit bitter, only managing to get P3 in the end there, but unlucky. But it's a well-deserved double podium today, and
Thank you.
you outscored all your rivals you were battling with in the championships. I believe you might possibly just be able to sneak past Louis or Swizzy in the championship to secure P4.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that in that sense, because it was one of the goals that I had set for the beginning of the season. When I remember when we talked at the last race of last season, one of my goals was to finish in the top 5, and yeah, just maybe I don't know if I would have been able to be in this position if you know, obviously because a few people missed a few events. I also had problems of my own, granted, especially at Dragon Trail. Um, but yeah, super happy with the overall results. Um, yeah, I think I've left a message for you all in Discord, which I just want to take another opportunity to thank each and every single one of you for all the effort you put in, like just all the commitment, hard work, and passion you put into this. Because obviously I mean, without you all, this wouldn't have been possible. Just like it wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have all the amazing drivers that we have in our community. So, yeah, just want to thank you all. Hopefully, season 3 I can keep on improving. Yeah, just one last word as well. It has been an absolute pleasure to do the track guides for everyone throughout the season, and I hope that at least I've managed to pass a little bit of my knowledge and experience, and that I helped you improve as driver, even if it was just for specific tracks only. And yeah, just wish you all a good rest of your evening. Yeah, can't wait for season 3.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Pedro. Yeah, it wouldn't be the same without you. I'm sure everyone appreciates the hard work you put in to help the league more accessible and more enjoyable for everyone.
Thank you guys.
I
Thank you.
couldn't agree more. But we'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much for everything, for all the help, like you said, for all the track guides, for everything, and for just generally being, part or an integral part of the admin team. Appreciate it,
Thank
and
you.
a good season worth of racing for you, and especially those
Yeah.
last 2 rounds. Definitely, the best scoring rounds that you've had throughout the season. But yeah, it's been lovely to chat to you as always, and
Thank you.
I will speak to you soon. But I will leave you, and I will let you go enjoy the rest of the evening and a double podium, obviously
Yeah,
in the
thank
sprint
you.
and the feature.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you as well to you and Midnight for trusting in me to make me a member of the admin team. And yeah, sorry for extending myself in a lot of the answers to the questions. But yeah, just so thank you very much, guys, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.
Bye
But
bye.
bye bye. So before we end the stream, we will just have a quick word with the co-founder alongside myself, Midnight ISO. Obviously, us both setting up Nighthawk Racing. Obviously, talk to us about your race. Talk to us about season 2 as a whole, and then looking forwards into season 3.
Thank you very much. I wonder where you were going with that intro for a second. But yeah, season 2's over. I'll just give a very quick recap on my race. That was fun. That was scary, and it's going to make for a lot of fun looking back in the feature race and the replay. And I hope you guys had a lot of fun watching it. But yeah, all I can really say is there's been some outstanding driving, not only in this race, last race at Spa in the wet in both lobbies and across the season. I'm very, very proud of everyone who has raced from race 1 all the way through to race 8, and I can only say absolutely well done to everyone in tricky circumstances. And yeah, it's been an utter pleasure being here alongside all these great drivers, and yeah, and hopefully everyone's enjoyed themselves from competing in it and as well as watching it. So thank you all. We're looking forward to season 3. Yeah, I think we're building something really good here, and there's without going too corny, there's a lot of smiles, there's a lot of good things going on, and as long as people are doing that, we'll keep doing this. And it is great to be a part of this, and it is down not only to the admin who have been absolutely brilliant, but each and every driver and everyone on who's even just left a like on YouTube. So thank you all. And yeah,
And
let's keep going.
I couldn't echo those words more. But Midnight, I hope you join me in saying a massive, massive thank you to Kirk for being co-commentator throughout the whole season. Obviously, 8 weeks worth of racing, 2 races in one night across obviously those 8 weeks. Just a massive thank you, Kirk, for being by my side throughout it all, through the highs and lows, the entertaining races. Appreciate you as always, and like I say, there's no one better that I'd want in the commentary booth sitting next to me and watching the race.
I will absolutely back that up and say you pair have done a great job this season. and we've come a long way since season 1. I think we've improved the quality, and the commentary has always been absolutely brilliant from the pair of you. So thank you to you pair, and I hope all 3 of us are going to be around for season 3.
Yeah. But before
I wouldn't have expected this on stream. Thank you very much, both of you. I want to reiterate what Sarah says. You said to me, Sarah, it goes back to you. There would be nobody else I'd like to commentate with. Thank you for the opportunity to commentate this season. I've enjoyed it a lot. If you want me back, I'll gladly be back for season 3 as well.
Well,
Of course we do. But it's just obviously a massive thank you, and appreciate all the time, the effort that you've put into it as well. It doesn't go unnoticed, and we do really appreciate it. But apart from that, it's time to look ahead into the future for season 3. We will, the admin team behind the scenes will get on it as soon as we can, get in some dates in the diary which we can pass on to all of the drivers, all of the admin and the commentators, so that we can get ourselves ready for what should be a very interesting and kind of a very exciting season 3. But it's been my pleasure to bring the broadcast to you every week, and obviously we've still got one more race to commentate on, which will be Lobby 2, so we'll get that posted as soon as we can. But across the both grids, a massive thank you to all the drivers, massive thank you for the love on the streams, and I will sign off and say we'll see you in season 3. Like I say, keep those diaries open. We'll give you some dates as soon as we can, and we'll see you back for season 3 and Summit Racing. But keep in contact. In the meantime, if there is any drivers that do want to sign up for season 3, please do let any of the Nighthawk admin members know. We'll get you in, we'll get you all registered for season 3, so that we're ready to hit the track. We'll get you on track from the get-go. But make sure to subscribe to the Nighthawk Racing YouTube. You'll probably see a lot of content appearing over there in the next couple of weeks. But apart from that, it's the Nighthawk Racing admin team and team in general. We're going to end the stream, and we'll see you for season 3. But anything you two want to say before we end the stream?
I'll let Kurt go first.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me here. I'll definitely be looking forward to season 3, and I absolutely have enjoyed this season. Yeah, actually, there is one thing I want to ask both you and Midnight Sarah. Will you both being the co-founders, can you give us any spoilers for season 3?
Oh.
Yeah, there's going to be some racing next season.
I knew Midnight was going to say that. I knew it. But sneak peeks, potentially more races, slightly different calendar, potentially more kind of weather,
more of everything.
Everything, bigger, better, just everything.
One thing we are looking at doing is potentially doing 2 weeks on, 1 week off. But even on the weeks off, we are looking at doing events. So we won't be going away. You may just get a little break in the championship, but you'll get other events as well.
But yeah, it's time to hit the planning board, as they say. But a massive congratulations to Callum, who believe is our season 2 champion. Obviously, we'll double check. The results will be posted across all social media and in the Discord. So if you haven't joined the Discord, please do follow Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You'll see us in the meantime posting some stuff over on there. But massive congratulations to Callum, and obviously we'll have to look at the rest of the championship. But I'm sure a couple of battles have been decided, especially that battle between Dark Lord and McManley. I believe McManley has pipped him for second place, so massive congratulations to McManley as well. And yeah, like we said earlier to Mac and Deadline, it's obviously been a pleasure to have the United boys on the grid, and it's a bright future ahead of them, and I'm excited to see where and in what direction they go. But I believe that is the right time to end the stream, so it's Nighthawk Racing Admin Team over and out, and we'll see you shortly for Season 3. But in the meantime, keep in contact, and we will we'll bring you some more action shortly.